Welcome, everyone, to this regular session of the South Kingstown Town Council. It is April 13th. The time is 7:30. Before we get into our agenda, we wanted to move.
Oh,
We're
you
going
can
to
have them
do
do
a
it.
moment of
Oh.
silence.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to start with roll call?
I think we have to.
Yeah, let's do the roll. No, it comes after the
Okay.
pledge.
All right,
But we're going to do the moment of silence first, and then
all right.
we'll do the pledge.
So,
It was 7E.
Councilwoman Clow,
Here.
Council President Collins,
Here.
Councilwoman McEntee.
here,
Councilman Veely.
Here.
It is noted that Councilwoman Healy is absent this evening.
all right, I'm going to make a motion that we move Communication 8E to the first item on the agenda prior to the pledge.
Second.
So moved. Yes. Any discussion? No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That item is moved to first on our agenda. Do we want to?
Read that 8E.
8E is a communication dated March 20th, 2015, from Stephen Almazian, Armenian National Committee of the Armenian National Committee of Rhode Island, requesting a moment of silence at this meeting and permission to fly their flag at Town Hall on April 24th to mark the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. It's been received and placed on file.
I make a motion that we take a moment of silence at this meeting and for the Armenian genocide. So if we would all take a moment, I make that motion.
A second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, a motion to move up items.
Why don't you do the pledge now?
I'm going to have them.
We'll have them.
Could you further direct that the Armenian flag be flown on April 24th?
I'll make a motion that the Armenian flag be flown at Town Hall on April 24th to mark the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
And now I will make a motion to move new business item 13A and B to the beginning of the agenda and move that they come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 So that would be Sarah Mitchell and Ryan Doyle, if you are here. I
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you, young ladies, sit down, before you sit, I have something to give you. 13A is a resolution adopting a proclamation recognizing Sarah Mitchell for receiving the President's Volunteer Service Award. And whereas Sarah Mitchell is a recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award, having dedicated her time and energy, completed 171 volunteer hours during 2014 at the South Kingstown Animal Shelter, and has achieved the status of the Gold Award. And whereas Sarah initially began volunteering at the animal shelter as a part of a school activity and continued offering volunteer hours even after her required hours were complete, and offered her service in a number of areas, including helping to supervise other volunteers. And whereas she helped to promote and create awareness of the animal shelter through social media encouraging other students to volunteer, and giving tours of the facility to the public while introducing them to available animals. Sarah also assisted with fundraising efforts and worked very closely with the animals, including hand feeding and providing care to newborn kittens, bathing and cleaning animals, and addressing other cleanliness issues. And whereas the South Kingstown Town Council recognizes the value of such awards which inspire others to engage in volunteer service, and even though volunteers may not seek recognition, their example can deliver a message that encourages others to take action. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby congratulate Sarah Mitchell on this accomplishment and wish her well in all future endeavors.
Great job.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Sarah.
Sarah, congratulations.
Great job. Good for you.
And item 13B, Ryan Doyle. Whereas Ryan Doyle is a recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award, dedicated her time and energy, having completed 53.25 volunteer hours during 2014 at the South Kingstown Animal Shelter, and has achieved the status of the Bronze Award. And whereas Ryan initially began volunteering at the animal shelter to assist with volunteer hour requirements for the Honor Society, and continued offering volunteer hours even after her required hours were complete. And whereas she predominantly worked with socializing the animals by handling the kittens and walking the dogs, and also helped to maintain kennel cleanliness, Ryan also assisted with fundraising efforts to support the animal shelter. And whereas the South Kingstown Town Council recognizes the value of such awards which inspire others to engage in volunteer service, and even though volunteers may not seek recognition, their example can deliver a message that encourages others to take action. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby congratulate Ryan Doyle on this accomplishment and wish her well in all future endeavors. Now to item 4 on our agenda, which is the approval of meetings of previous minutes. Item 4A is work sessions. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the work sessions of March 4th, March 11th, March 23rd, and March 31st of 2015.
Second.
So moved. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. The work session minutes are approved. Item 4B is regular sessions.
I move approval of the minutes of the regular sessions for March 16th and March 23rd, 2015.
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries unanimously. The regular session minutes are approved. Item 4C are the minutes for the closed executive session.
I move approval of the March 23rd closed executive session minutes.
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item 5 on our agenda is the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously as well. And that brings us to item 6 on the agenda, which is licenses. Item 6A is a resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to the URI Friend of Women's Athletics for an Evening of Grapes and Grain event to be held Saturday, June 6, 2015, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. under a tent on the lawn of the URI President's House, which is at 56 Upper College Road in Kingston. The application is by Michelle Carreri, 35 Campus Avenue, Kingston.
Hello.
I am applying on behalf of the University of Rhode Island, specifically on behalf of Lynn Baker Dooley, and this is our 6th year. We're holding our Grapes and Grain annual fundraiser. The monies raised are for URI women's athletes. We have a dry campus, as you know, but for this one day, we are asking for permission by holding this annual Grapes and Grain event to have alcohol from various local liquor stores. So we're asking your permission if we can have it again this year.
Michelle, do you, are you having food? I think I saw in your application or your invitation that you had several restaurants in town and
Yes,
caterers.
we have.
Why don't you tell us something about all the people that have signed on for this?
Sure. We have various local food vendors, and I hate to say this now, especially because it's 7:30 at night. I'm not sure how many people have eaten dinner, but we have local vendors such as 300 North, Coast Guard House, Crazy Burger, the Carriage Inn, Dragon Palace. We even have Nana's Gelato, Omega-3 Dressings, Two Gulls Cafe, a lot of new food vendors.
And what is how much are the tickets to go to the event?
So the tickets are $100, and like I said, all proceeds raised benefit URI Women's Athletics.
Very good.
How big has the event been in the past? Pretty good turnout?
Yes, every year the word is out, and there are more and more people who are coming. And last year we had over 250 people in attendance. We'd love to have everyone here. I know there's a wide audience here tonight. We'd love to have everyone here. Come if you're available, June 6th, 5 to 8 p.m. We'll be sending out invitations to all of you, so hopefully you'll be here.
Where can you purchase the tickets?
You can purchase them online, also the night of the event. And we're also in the midst of promoting this event at the local restaurants, so this actual flyer will be at each location.
Well, it's a great event for a great cause, and it sounds like a great time. I mean, it's a beautiful location, let's face it. So I
is.
move approval of new License A.
Second?
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck.
Item B under licenses is a resolution granting a victualling license to VGB LLC, doing business as Pasquale's Pizzeria Napolitana, 60 South County Commons Way, Unit G1, Wakefield. Subject to approval by the Fire Chief and Communications Superintendent. The application is by Pasquale Iliano, 12 Pickering Drive. Apologies for my pronunciation.
Good evening. How you doing? My name is Pasquale Iliano, and I'm a restaurateur down in Westerly since 2002. And I had the opportunity to bring our product up here in Wakefield, which over the years I had the pleasure to meet many people from this area down in Westerly, and we decided to embrace this new adventure and bring our product up here. Consisting in real Neapolitan pizzeria wood fire, and also married to the New York style pizza. And the menu is going to consist in typical lot of appetizers and fancy pasta dishes and stuff like that. But all is going to be, it's going to be a nice little place. We're going to welcome in all families, and we hope, everybody's going to join us at least one night and give us a try.
Pasquale, when are you opening?
Well, we're under construction right now, so we're getting things together, and we're shooting probably for mid-May, hopefully.
Oh, very good. And what are your hours of operation gonna
I will be 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week.
Very good.
What is your seating capacity?
I'm sorry?
Seating capacity?
34, 36. estimating, we're still working with the spaces and stuff, so that's pretty much.
I move approval of new license 6B.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to it.
Item C under licenses is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the 6th annual KIAI 5K road race on Saturday, May 16th, 2015, at 9 a.m. to Karate Instruction Assistance Initiative. P.O. Box 274 Wakefield, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured for the event in the amounts specified by the risk manager, and subject to conditions set by the town's Transportation and Traffic Review Committee. Proceeds to fund the karate scholarships for low-income families. The application is by Julie M. Conti, President, 110 Cedar Hollow Road, Wakefield. Julie.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carissa Wallen. I am on the board of directors of KIAI. We've come here tonight asking for granting of a permit for our, as you just read, the 6th annual road race. This is our biggest fundraiser of the year, and this race draws in people from the local community as well as the karate studios that participate, which is Ichiban as well as East Coast Karate. It'll take place on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Registration takes place in the Duotron parking lot, which is a private parking lot. The race begins at 9, and as it's a 5K, usually finishes with walkers by 10. And then we have a section of music and prizes that's given in the private parking lot at Duotron. We have walked the route, which is it's an NTSB sanctioned race route. We've walked the route with local police officer Mark Healy. He has suggested flaggers. We have flaggers on 23 locations throughout the route. We also have police detail that we request, 4 police officers and 2 in which will rotate their positions. We will pass out flyers to all the residents, and we will have information signs posted 1 week prior to the event at local businesses, and on the day of the event, we have road race slow signs on that. And myself, other board members, and members of the executive committee will be present at that day.
Well, you certainly did your homework. Can you tell us about the route? Why don't you explain where the route is?
Sure. It runs from Highland Ave, Highland Kenwood, Kenwood to Winter, Winter to Willard, Willard to Allen, Allen to Glenwood. Allen before the blind curve, we have 2 flaggers there. Willard, Briarwood, South Road, comes around Dock Ray, and then it comes back around Willard and ends back on Highland.
Wow, very good. And did you say what the cost of registration for the event was?
The cost of registration is $20 prior to and $25 same day. And registration begins as early as 8 a.m. The racers can pick up their numbers, their tags, and we also have registration open on RaceWire if anybody's interested, and we also have same-day registration, and walkers are welcome as well. You do not have to be a runner.
How many runners have you had in the past?
It varies. We've gone from 175 to 125 tends to be the typical. Like I said, it's a small race, but it's our biggest fundraiser of the year.
Yeah, as I understand, this is where you get the bulk of your money for your scholarships.
Absolutely. It's almost about half of the budget, and it provides a lot of scholarships, which we said in the explanation. It's for low-income and at-risk children.
Nice.
Very good. I move approval of new license 6C.
Second.
So moved. Any further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you very
opposed?
much.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Item D is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Run for Kerry Road Race on Sunday, August 2nd, 2015 at 9 a.m. to the Kerry Lynn Bissett Female Athletic Scholarship Fund, 78 Bedford Drive, Wakefield. Subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured, in the amounts specified by the risk manager and subject to conditions set by the town's Transportation and Traffic Review Committee. Proceeds to benefit the Run for Kerry Scholarship Fund, application by Kathleen Bassett, 78 Bedford Drive, Wakefield.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Bassett. I am the mother of Carrie Bassett. Carrie passed away 14 years ago yesterday. Our family created a road race for her memory. She loved to run. She was a member of the South Kingston School track and cross-country team, and she was running when she passed away. She was a freshman at LaSalle University. Over the past 14 years, we've given away $57,000 in scholarships to local females at South Kingston High School. We also, in 2010, started giving away books in her name at the local high schools. We've given away about $2,000. This is our only fundraiser. We are applying for a renewal.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments?
I know this is a great race, Kathleen, but, and you have gone before the police?
Yes, we have.
See Mark Healy?
Yes, we have. We have
Great.
2 ambulances. We have about 60 volunteers. I have a doctor and nurse that volunteer every year. We have usually 600 to 700 run-ins, depending on the weather.
Great.
Lots of volunteers. Our route is we stop by the Matunic Fire Station. We go Schoolhouse Road to Moonstone Beach Road, down Cards Pond Road, through the Blackberry Hill neighborhood, and we finish at Matunic Elementary School. And it's
very
4 miles.
Very good. And how do people register for the race?
They can register on Run for Kerry website. We have a Saturday morning registration from 9 to 12 at Matunic Elementary School in the morning of the race. It's $25.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll give notice a week before?
I have a letter that I can show you that we pass out to the neighborhood. We go around on the week before and put it on all the outsides of the mailboxes. We've done that for the past 13 years.
Oh, that's great. You don't have to
Okay.
show us. I mean, unless anybody wants to see it, but.
Yeah, from what I've heard, you have such great support in your whole neighborhood.
Thank
The
you.
whole
I appreciate
Matunic
that.
community is very supportive of your race.
Thank
and,
you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you. And I'm going to move that we approve new license 6D.
Second?
So moved.
Thank you very much.
No, we've got to vote.
Let's vote.
Oh.
Yes. All in favor, say
Oh,
aye.
sorry.
Aye.
No, thank you very much.
We're so in support that we don't even think we have to vote. so.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
That brings us to item 7 on our agenda tonight, public hearings. Public hearing A is continued from March 9th and March 23rd, 2015. It's relative to proposed amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 9, Licenses and Miscellaneous Business Regulations, and it would establish a new section entitled Article 6, Indoor Shooting Ranges, as shown on Exhibit 1 attached to your agenda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We've been here numerous occasions before the council on these matters. This is one of the last steps, which is the actual licensing. And thank you for the continuances to be here tonight. But during that period of time, I've met on many occasions with the town solicitor. We've exchanged numerous emails, phone calls to come up with some proposed language, which right now, my client, Mr. Ursillo, and also the gentleman, Frank Sicoccio, representing the Second Amendment Coalition. We've all worked together to come to something that we all agree to. And so I don't know if I want to turn it over to Mike, but he has the proposed language that my understanding has been provided to the council.
Mike, could you tell us
Thank
the
you.
details?
What I want to thank Mark and his associates for all the time that they were willing to spend, because this was not an easy process, but I believe that the final product that we have to recommend here to you, it's titled Proposed Amendments to the Town Code. You have copies of the various changes that we came up with. I want to begin by saying that these changes are changes with which I am extremely comfortable in terms of my role in representing the town and making sure that you as a council and future councils will have the ability to properly regulate this type of activity in the town. What I will do is I'll go over now briefly some of the changes that we focused on and why we focused on those changes and made those changes. The first was that we added a section to the definition section of indoor shooting range. It specifically now excludes a private property owner who may partake of such activities on their own private property, but is not operating a business, profit, nonprofit, et cetera. So this ordinance is truly only going to apply to a commercial operation running a shooting range, which is what the intent was in any event. Next, like all licenses, penalties cannot be imposed by the council on the license holder unless there's first the opportunity to have some due process, meaning they would be able to come before the council. We would describe what areas the council or the town were not happy with. Most likely this would come through the chief of police. They would have an opportunity at a public hearing to provide their side of the story, so to speak, and then after a hearing, you would then make a decision on how to go forward. Again, the revocation of a license, whether it be this license or any other type of license, for instance, liquor license, all go through these very similar due process hearings, and we have now made it very clear that that would be the case. Additionally, if in fact the chief of police were to decide that there was an absolute emergency of some type that directly affected public health and safety, the chief of police would have the opportunity to shut that down, and then we would then come to a hearing, we would convene a hearing of the council. Again, this would be no different than if there were a public health and safety matter at some business in town, again, a restaurant with a liquor license, et cetera. We always have that ability in the case of a public emergency to close down. But in general, there will be the opportunity for a hearing, as there should be. The operating hours of the shooting range have been defined as from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days per week, with our police officers having access to the facility 24 hours per day. This is consistent with the way other shooting range operating hours run. And again, remember that we are inside of a building. It's not happening outside. And it is very clear in this ordinance that this activities is subject to all the standards set forth in our noise ordinance, which is section 507 of the zoning ordinance. So all of those criteria, decibel levels, et cetera, will apply to this activity. And the license ordinance makes that clear. The sections on development requirements and the applicant reimbursing the town for cost of hiring engineering and professional services to review the application have all been stricken, not because they're not going to be required. They are required. Pursuant to the amendment to the zoning ordinance the council has previously approved, they need to go through this very same process with all of the requirements that were set forth in this license while they're pursuing their special use permit. They will still be required to provide you with the site plan and the recommendation from the planning board, so you will in fact get to see that. It just was very duplicative to have all of these standards repeated in a licensing process when it's already mandated in the zoning ordinance. Renewals of the license will be subject to compliance with the terms of this ordinance as well as the NRA standards that are referenced in the ordinance. In other words, there are, again, the analogies to the liquor license. When a renewal comes up, if an applicant shows that they have complied with all of the provisions of the ordinance, then that would be the standard which you will use in determining whether or not to renew it, so that there's no question about what standard applies. The standards are right in your license itself. And finally, the section, there's a section in there that says the use would be deemed abandoned if it were not in place for a period of over 1 year. That was very duplicative and not at all necessary for this reason. This is now part of your zoning ordinance, and your zoning ordinance, as it applies to all uses, whether it be a shooting range or any other use, sets forth that standard to which this particular use would also be subject. So again, those are an outline of the changes that have been made. Many hours and many versions of this particular license went back and forth. Again, I feel that what we have here this evening is something that the town can embrace. I'm here to answer any questions you may have about specific provisions. Attorney Fay also, I'm sure, will answer any questions that you may have concerning this. Finally, I know it was announced at the beginning, but just for purposes of re-emphasizing, this is a public hearing with regard to the license procedure or the adoption of a license. This applicant will have to come back before the town council at some future point after they receive their special use permit in order to apply for a license. This is just the generic foundation procedure that you're looking at for this evening.
Thank you. Attorney Fay, I'm pretty comfortable with all those amendments that we've seen offered. We've continued to hear some reservations from the public about the potential for rifle and black powder to be used in the outdoor range. So if you could speak to that and try to allay those concerns.
I still have some questions for Mike on the.
Well, President, do you want me to answer that question first?
No, whatever.
President?
Yeah, if you could answer my question
Just,
first.
I spoke to some of the constituents out here tonight beforehand. It's been our position, which we put in writing all along, that when we get to the stage before zoning, we will put it on the record and make it contingent upon the special use permit that there will be no outdoor public. It's a permitted use. We can have that argument back and forth, but as a concession to the town, we will put that in the record as part of the special use permit, that we will give up that permitted use on the record. Some of the people here from Indian Lake, I talked to them before, I kind of explained to them, it is complicated, it's a little, to a lay person how the process works, but again, I have to go before zoning, and that's really the appropriate time, and I put it on the record along every step of the way, but finally, when we get to zoning, that's, I think, that's when it will be in the record and part of the record, and that's when they'll have their concession.
Sure. We'll have comments after it.
Can I come? I'll comment on this, but then I still want to go back to the language changes. So I'm getting, all right, so Mr. Fay and Mr. Waugh and
Mr. Soderberg.
Mr. Soderberg, I know your first name is Sven, I'm sorry. I would like to, there was a letter January 26, 2015 that was sent to Michael Visich, president of the Village at Indian Lake Homeowners and Condominium Association, and it was from Mark Fay, counsel for Bradley Waugh. In this letter, I'll just read part of it. If the town approves his zoning language, which is the zoning language that's is currently before us on the license and the prior zoning ordinance that we approved. If the town approves his zoning language application, which is Mr. Waugh's, which would allow the construction of an indoor gun range, he will permanently and absolutely give up his right to construct or operate an outdoor gun range on the property. And I understand that's what you just said, and I would just like this letter forwarded to the zoning board and added into the application, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
And I know we still argue about whether or not the right to operate an outdoor firing range is still available to you. I think Mr. Osillo could speak to this even better than I can, but Mr. Frisella, in a letter dated September 28, 2000, sent to the town manager a letter saying that he agreed to permanently close all rifle and handgun shooting ranges in perpetuity, and the town formally accepted his letter as a commitment and agreement to forever ban handgun, rifle, or black powder shooting on the Peacedale Shooting Preserve property. So it is, and I'd ask Mr. Osillo to elaborate, but it is the position of the town that the right to an outdoor firing range has been permanently relinquished and terminated. So I just, if you could go into that, Mike, you did give us a memorandum. I just want to make this very clear. I know there's a lot of people here tonight who have questions about that aspect of it, although I know that the licensing part, which we are here for tonight, doesn't specifically address this, but once again, we're in a position with with a particular project where we have information that I just want to get it all out there, because we have a lot of people here tonight, and I can see.
That's fine. And Carol, I think you said it best. I did, in fact, provide a memo to the council, in my opinion, on this particular subject. That memo will, of course, be forwarded to the zoning board. So we not only have that memo on my position with regard to the law that the use has been abandoned, we also have Mr. Fay both orally and in writing, basically stating that as a condition of receiving a special use permit, they will not seek a special use permit again to resurrect that particular use. So I think that, that you and the public should be more than satisfied that this is something that is not going to happen there. The whole purpose of them developing the indoor shooting range there is precisely so that there would not be an outdoor shooting range there.
No, and I do agree with you, Mike, and I appreciate the fact that they've offered the oral testimony tonight and the letter, and I do appreciate all of you. But I just want to settle the concerns of many of the constituents out here, and I've been hearing it quite a bit. So I would like to forward your memo, the letter from Attorney Fay dated January 26th, and you refer in the memo to Steve's letter and Mr. Frisella's letter, which Mr. Frisella sent a letter to the town manager September 8, 2000, and Steve Alfred sent a letter back to Mr. Frisella dated September 28, 2000. So those are referred to in your memo, and I just would like all that forwarded.
We'll forward all that to the zoning board. And just one further clarification, that the skeet shooting that is going on presently, that is not affected by that. That will continue to exist on those premises, but there'll be no outdoor black powder rifle shooting. It's just going to be the skeet shooting.
And I understand that, and that is pre-zoning, is why
That goes
this
back to
is continued to allow.
1946. You're right. It predated zoning. It's called a legal non-conforming use. Yes.
And I'd just like to ask Mr. Waugh and Sven, how many of the skeet shooting ranges, what do you call them, the stations, do you have?
Currently, we have 16, by the way, Brad Waugh, owner of the Peacedale Shooting Preserve. We have 16 stands in operation. In the past, Mr. Frisella had 50 stands in operation. And on top of that, we have approximately 2 machines per station. They have been reconfigured over the past, since about September, and we've set those stations up. I think the closest house is, what, 350 yards? Yeah. And we actually had, look to my side here, I think this is Mr. Guy Box. We were contacted by Mr. Box about some sound emanating. So if you would mind if I jump into this right now?
Go right ahead. Oh, it's not up to me, I'm sorry. I just was responding to, because we were talking back and forth.
So 16 stands are within operation. And the hours that we operate are from 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. In the past, it opened up at 7 o'clock in the morning and closed at dusk.
Now, do you have any plans to expand the number of skeet stations?
We're never going to go to 50, but we would probably go to about 24 is what we've been looking at, adding 8 more, because if you're familiar with golf, just like in golf and sporting clays, you have your advanced shooter who might start off and tee off from the blue area, and then you have the other individual that starts off in the white, and in my case I start off in the yellow area. But that being the case, you have to have different classes of shooters, and currently the setup is a little bit more advanced than some people like.
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything, Sven?
No, that covered. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Can I just say, I did hear you've done a whole lot more in the landscaping to try to reduce sound, is that correct?
That is correct, Councilwoman. We have installed a little over 20 white pine trees on the western side of the property, which is closest to the neighbors to our west. We have also done some landscaping in which the stands themselves are set up in natural hollows and veils within the property to cut down the noise. The National Sporting Clay Foundation has stated that trees are actually the best absorbent of sound. They absorb close to 20 decibels in the case of pine trees. And we did have the Department of Environmental Management out there on Wednesday this week suggesting that in lieu of putting in white pine trees in the future, we use blue spruce. So we have the intention on the eastern side of the property of putting in more of blue spruce.
Nice.
And as soon as we can start digging, probably in the latter part of April, early May, we'll be putting in those trees. But yes, we have done a substantial amount of landscaping to the property.
Waiting for the ground to thaw, no doubt.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr.
Could
President.
can I ask questions about the language changes?
Sure.
Before we open it up to the public? So, Mike, I just wanted to go over the language changes, the proposed amendments to the Town Code, Article 6, indoor shooting ranges, Division 1 generally. As on page 4, which is setbacks, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are still requiring the setbacks that are set forth in Section 501.11 of the zoning ordinance. That's correct, right?
That's absolutely correct, yeah. This
Okay.
was duplicative.
Okay. The other one was the noise management. Indoor shooting range facilities shall be consistent with Section 507 of the zoning ordinance. Now, we took that out because that, again, is already stated in the zoning ordinances. Is that correct?
Now, actually, we stated on page 2, Carol, under Section 9-123, noise mitigation, Section 2 says,
Okay.
indoor shooting range facilities shall be consistent with Section 507 of the zoning ordinance as to all allowable noise levels and noise disturbances. So since we have it there, we didn't need it
Okay.
again.
Oh, very good. And the other one was under the site plan. That's Section 9-155.
That's
And-
correct. All of that information is required in connection with the special use permit. So all that will be going to the planning board, and then when it comes back to you, that site plan, as approved by the planning board, will be in front of you.
So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're still,
All
the
that
radius
is,
plan is still 400 feet, right?
yes,
Per the zoning, and all the other,
they're all
the property
required under
lines,
zoning.
the complete layout. So all of that is still part, but it's in a different part of the zoning ordinance.
It's going to be required in connection with the application for a special use permit before the zoning board.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't think there's any more. Well, I think you have to wait till he opens it to the public. That's, oh, we will. It's just first week we ask questions, Mr. Box. Let's see. Okay, I think that's it, but thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions or comments from the council? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll take commentary from the public. Mr. Box, you were first in line, I think.
Hi, thank you. I want to
please,
apologize for giving everybody such a hard time over the phone.
Just state your name and where you're from.
My name is Guy Box, and I live at 60 Taylor Rock Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island. One of the questions I had with the language that was just described, what happens if the person sells that property? Does the next acquiring person now have a right to shoot pistols and rifles on the outside?
Well, I think that's a question for Mr. Ursullo.
There's a section on transfer of the license, and so whenever there's going to be a transfer, it must be with the written approval and consent of the town council, following a public hearing and notice as if it were a brand-new license. So therefore, individuals would be receiving notice just like they're receiving notice in connection with this application, and the transfer cannot happen without a public hearing in front of this council that everyone would have the ability to come and speak at.
Okay. Can I ask more questions?
Sure.
Well, I first want to point out I'm not against this range. I think the indoor range, providing there's no residual noises and no intrusive outdoor lighting and so forth, I think it'd be great for the town. So I'm not against that. I'm not against the Second Amendment or shooting or anything like that. And even outside trap shooting, I'm not against that, sporting clays. However, I do have a problem with the residual noise from the shotguns. I live fairly close, I think, 0.6 of a mile, I think. And the sounds I hear are quite loud, and they're continuous, to such an extent that I can hear these shotgun noises inside my own home. And it's not like one or two, but it's continuous all day long. And I just heard that the hours are going to be 7 days a week, so there's not even a day off. I have a right, and my wife has a right, to enjoy our property in a peaceful way, in a quiet way. And the shooting is so bad that my property value is going to be considerably reduced. So when would I show my property? At 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon? And you were there on a Saturday afternoon, Carol. And it's continuous. I'm not against that, but certain things have to be done. And I sent everyone a letter regarding certain things that can be done to mitigate the sound. And Mr. Brad has said that he will do some of them, but from the information that I have, doing one thing to mitigate the sound will be ineffective. There are several things that you have to do. And I can just read from what I wrote. According to a report issued by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and EA Engineering, Science and Technology, Chapter 2, Sound, sounds coming from an outdoor range can be mitigated or managed in a combination of approaches, and changes are made. These approaches are operational approaches, siting conditions, engineering approaches, and vegetation approaches. Operational approaches, limiting the hours, having a day off. I didn't hear any days off. I heard 7 days a week. Am I correct in saying that? I didn't hear any nighttime shooting, and that's great. But again, people are going to be paying $500 to $1,000, and he's looking for 1,000 members. I know if I paid $1,000 to join a club, I'm going to want to be out there every day, and I want to experience everything. Now, there's 1,000 people that are like that. And I invite you to come to my neighborhood. And it's just, it's pretty bad. And there are some other neighbors around here, and I went around to a lot of the other properties, and a lot of people hear the same thing. And, there are other states that have laws that make shooting facilities comply with sound ordinances and annoyance ordinances. And I know Brad's nephew came to my house and with a sound decibel meter and was trying to record, the shotgun sounds. But I soon found out after reading that those tests have to be done on the site near the sound. And I would bet that the sound energy coming from that site far exceeds any decibel levels that you already have in the town ordinance, which really don't apply to outdoor shooting ranges. They have a special set of rules. And states like Connecticut and nearby states, they have annoyance rules saying that, somebody just can't come in and do whatever they want if they're going to reduce the value of your life and prevent you from enjoying your property peacefully and quietly, or to reduce the value of your home. And this town does not have anything like that. It has barking dogs, trash, old cars, and now this is a big operation. You should have something like that. And I'm not trying to shut this guy down. I just want all these things done to lower the sound. And there are many things he can do. In addition to hours, they can have safety ranges that make sure that there's only a certain amount of people shooting at the same time, days off, no night shooting.
Mr. Box, in the consideration of time, because we have a full room here,
Okay.
if you have a question that you're
Yeah,
gonna get to.
I'll just briefly put it up. I think the letter that I sent you outlines all the things that are done to mitigate sound. Those are not unreasonable, and they have to be done in a combination. You need sound barriers that reflect the sound. You need berms and trees that absorb the sound. You need limited hours. If you can put these shotgun stations in a lower part of that range, and I know there's a lower part of that range, that's where it used to have the old rifle ranges. Those approaches in common, or altogether, will reduce the sound impact. And it says, this is a quote from the book, "Remember, no single approach, material, construction, technique, or vegetation can completely control sound, but the total effect of many approaches, materials, construction techniques, and vegetation planting in combination can be very helpful." That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Mr. Box.
Thank you.
Are there other comments from the public? Again, this is about a license for an indoor range, so if we could keep our comments sort of trained on that.
Well, as it pertains to licensing, I think we can be short. I'm Dave Cordero, 190 Table Rock Road in the village at Indian Lake. As you know, we met with Brad on January 25th, and we came to a verbal agreement there that there would be no outdoor rifle, pistol, or black powder shooting there. After that meeting on the 26th, and this is the crux of the matter, Brad sent back an email to us that said, "Mr. Mark Fay will be producing a letter to you by tomorrow morning stating that Peacedale Shooting Preserve will give up their rights to an outdoor shooting range with the approval of an indoor shooting range. This will be incorporated into zoning for the property to protect you." That's really the crux of it. We're looking for what document, what ordinance, what code. Will it be a part of the zoning variance? Will it be a part of the license? Will it be a part of the special use permit where it's codified? We think Brad and Sven and Mark are honorable people, and they've made their commitment public. We believe they'll keep it. But as Mark said at our meeting, he quoted Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. So we're looking for that written.
My understanding is that that will be a condition that the applicant is going to agree to in connection with their application for a special use permit before the zoning board. So when they go to the zoning board to apply for that special use permit, and Mr. Fay said it tonight, they will agree to that as a condition. So therefore, when they come before this council for the license after they get the special use permit, that'll be a condition that they will incorporate as part of the license. I have that right, Mark?
Yeah, and I explained this to the association. That's exactly the only issue legally. I don't know if we can make it as part of the license because the license is South County.
Right. What's going to happen is
It will be on the
that-
record at zoning. It will be on the record. It will be part of our ability to get the special use permit.
And usually what happens, Mark, is when they approve a license which has come from zoning pursuant to a special use permit, liquor license, shooting range license, they usually do it in conjunction with that approval.
Right, and I'm fine with that.
And per your previous comments, this will pass along, should Mr. Waugh not own the range or transfer it, it'll follow that procedure where it will have to come before the town council again.
With notice to everyone, yes.
Yes. On the notice point, just one thing I would suggest. I think you did a 200 or 500 foot, 400 foot notice around the gunshots, rifles, pistols, and black powder guns, which we know will not be shot there. But if they were, we're talking about ranges of 1 mile or 1.5 miles. Sound, which may be an issue, is probably on a fair wind day a mile issue also in terms of what can be heard. I would just like to suggest that maybe notice of zoning meetings and or planning meetings, that notice might be broadened because gun shooting has an effect for about 1 mile radius. It's only a suggestion.
Sure. It's also advertised too, though, so that literally anyone, whether they're 400 feet, 1 mile, or frankly, even outside the town, it is advertised.
Okay. The people of Indian Lake satisfied? Okay. I think we're excused. Is that all right? No.
Yes, please.
I'm Mary Leone. I live at 131 Table Rock Road, and I'm listening to all of this, and I'm glad they can't shoot rifles and powder through a residential neighborhood. I think that makes sense. However, we're talking about expanding the number of skeet bays and the number of memberships. And we really don't know the effect of the sound on our neighborhood yet because it hasn't happened yet. Will we be able to come back and address that issue if it gets so unbearable? Because right now it's like fireworks every day. And I like fireworks on the 4th of July, but not every day from 9 in the morning till 5 at night. But if you're going to expand the number of shooters and the number of bays, what is the sound going to be? We don't know that yet.
Mr. Ursillo, can you talk about what avenues there are?
Could I say something first, Mary? I think one of the purposes of us all supporting, or any of us in this room and up here, if we do support it, of supporting the indoor range is that this, you know, they will be indoors, and there are noise controls in the indoor range, so you shouldn't hear those. But the other side of this is, if we don't have the indoor range, there's nothing to stop them from expanding the skeet shooting outdoors back to what it was in the day of Mr. Frisella. So because this is pre-zoning, I think that going that route would be worse for noise. Because he's putting it on the indoors should help reduce the amount of noise that's possible to come from the land. And maybe you want to address that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, everybody here, that neighbors, the whole point Mr. Waugh and his family bought this from the Frisellas is because they want to keep it as an outdoor preserve, okay? One thing, we're working right now with DEM.
Mr. Fay.
Well, I'll speak to the council, but one thing we're working on right now, we're working with DEM in regard to giving up our rights along the Saugatucket River, you know, to preserve the trout fishing and all that. So that's part of keeping the way it is. And I would point out to the people here, if the town would like to get involved in buying the development rights on the rest of the property, we'd be more than happy to entertain that, and that would solve all these problems in regard to any kind of future development. Again, the whole point of this is to keep it as an outdoor natural preserve. So we're not talking about expanding it.
Expanding the outdoor. You're not talking about that. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's going to be, well, Brad.
Yeah, so this is Brad Waugh again, and Mary, I believe it was. So Mary, there used to be 50 stands.
Mr. Waugh.
The last time there was 50 stands
Mr.
in
Waugh.
operation was 2004.
Hey, this is a public hearing.
Okay, so Abel, the last time there was 50 stands in operation was 2004. Over the last few years, though, there has been 36 stands throughout the property used at various times. And the fact of the matter, the 1,000 people that are talking about, I want to make sure, number one, everybody understands this is a public facility, okay? The reason we do have some memberships are there are individuals that want to have preferred tee times, as it were. And those people were going to close out the membership to the indoor gun range at 1,000 people. So, and it's very important to note that a person that does skeet shooting, sporting clays, not necessarily is interested in doing pistol or rifle. It's approximately less than 20% of the people do both, according to the statistics that we've looked at. So actually, if I look at the numbers that Mr. Frisella had back in the heyday of 1999, 2000, when he had both the pistol ranges, the rifle ranges, the 50 sporting clays stands going, we actually will have today about 25% of the people that he had shooting there during the heyday. And remember, there is no outdoor gun range. To your point, Councilwoman McEntee, the idea of putting in an indoor gun range is to do away with any ability to have an outdoor gun range. And getting to hours, yes, this thing will operate about 7 days a week, except for holidays, but that is an indoor gun range in which the decibel rating is less than 30 decibels 100 feet from the building. Mr. Box is 0.62 miles away. We do have a study that we ran. We could not get a decibel rating over 50 decibels. Right now, as I speak to you, I'm at 70 decibels. So realistically, you're seeing an operation that is actually going to be using the indoor gun range more efficiently. And to be very frank with you about doing anything to the topography of the land, I don't want to do that. I do not want to put in man-made structures on that property. Part of the fact that people like to go through that property is the beauty of it. It's natural beauty, and we're not going to change that. I will put in landscaping. I do have the stands set up in natural hollows within the property. And again, if I did put any man-made structures in, the best I could do is maybe 2 to 3 decibels. To your point, Councilwoman McEntee, this is a range that has existed from a sporting clays standpoint since 1949. So we've been very good neighbors. We intend to be on a continual basis. And when Mr. Box noted that he had a problem, we addressed it. We actually moved one of the stands 180 degrees into the opposite direction, which hopefully did make some changes. But that being said, we will do the landscaping on the property. We're not building any man-made structures to change that property. We love it just the way it is, and we want to keep it natural.
Brad, while you're at the microphone, how late do they shoot on the outdoor skeet?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.?
That's it.
That's
And
going
we
to be
are
all,
closed
that's
on-
going to stay that way?
It's going to stay that way, and we're also closed on Mondays.
So you're closed on Monday for outdoor skeet,
That's correct.
and outdoor, that's the only kind of skeet we have, so sorry about
Sporting
that.
clays, skeet, 5 tribes.
So
Shotgun.
after 5 o'clock, there should be no outdoor shooting, and nobody should hear anything from the inside,
Shouldn't,
basically.
no. And you shouldn't hear anything from the indoor at all.
And Mondays, there'll be no skeet shooting.
There has never been
Okay.
shooting on Mondays.
So that addresses, Mr. Box, some of your concerns, but,
Now, there are other properties close by where other people are shooting, and it's not us.
mhm.
And we can't do anything. They have a right to shoot. It's private land. They have a right to shoot there, and they are shooting very large caliber rounds, but that is not us.
Okay.
Just so it's clear, they do, on the weekends with some of the tournaments, it would go, the latest would be 6:30.
6:30, okay. Only on tournaments, so that's not going to be every weekend?
On the weekends.
Oh, on the weekends at 6:30, Monday through Friday, I mean, Tuesday through Friday, 5 o'clock,
That is correct.
and it's going to stay that way?
That is correct.
Okay.
And the amount of stands will not exceed 24.
It will not exceed 24. Will that
If you'd
include,
like us to put that in writing, we'd be happy to.
anything in writing is good for me, but-
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
But Mike, isn't the proper place for them to put that in writing when they apply for the special use permit?
Yes.
Okay. Before you go, Mr. Box, are there other comments from the public? I want to give other people an opportunity to speak.
Hi, my name is Heidi Lassard, and my husband and I have lived on Rose Hill Road for 35 years. I almost hate to admit that because that means I'm old. I think our house is the house they talked about that is 350 yards from the shooting range. The Fasellas were excellent neighbors. So far, they have been excellent neighbors. The noise isn't any worse than the sand and gravel pit that wakes me up. It's not any worse than the transfer station that comes down the road with the big trucks. When you live in a town, there are things that are noisy. It's just the way life is. To be honest, I have people who come to my house and say, "Oh, what is that noise?" "Oh, they must be shooting." I don't even notice it anymore. And one of the stations, I was up there the other day, one of the stations shoots directly at my house. It is what it is. It's not as loud as I'm hearing people saying, and I am the closest person to it. That is, I am the closest, right? Yeah, I am the closest. And no. In all the years, my children have played out in the backyard. In all the years that we have been there, all 35 years, there has never been an issue. Just thought you might want to know that.
Thank you. There was another man back in a couple of rows back. Oh. This gentleman was raising his hand, so I'm going to let him go first.
Right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Tim Gray. I live in Kingston. I just wanted a couple of clarifications on the language moving forward. If someone were to come back in a year and say, "We had an idea about opening another indoor range," are you guys going to set the minimum acreage for that for 120 acres, or is that in the language currently?
In the language.
It's in the language. And
You need to start with 120 acres.
for an indoor range?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, honestly, that's like if I wanted to buy a chicken, you're telling me I have to buy a 200-acre farm. Because if you go up the road to Coventry and look at Midstate Guns, they have a gun shop and one of the most state-of-the-art indoor ranges in Rhode Island, a 24-yard range. And they're on 3 to 4 acres of property. So what you're effectively going to do is shut out anybody in the future who wants to open an indoor range on a small amount of land. They would have to purchase land in excess of 120 acres plus to have an indoor range, which I think sets a very bad business precedent moving forward for not only opening an indoor range, but opening other businesses where one business, because they have the acreage now, is held to this standard. If you'd like to visit Midstate Guns, and they're right on Tioga Avenue, which is right on the main thoroughfare in Coventry, they were able to do this in 3 to 4 acres. And they have all the permits and NRA and everything else. I think this is overkill to set a limit of 120 acres for an indoor 25-yard range. Thank you.
Thank you.
About Midstate. Midstate is not a state-of-the-art indoor gun range. I can tell you that. If you go there, it is not. Their system, it's not a state-of-the-art indoor gun range. I know their systems. I know what we're putting in. It's night and day. They are having problems at Midstate with expansion because they don't have enough land there. They've had problems with traffic off that road, people crossing over the road. So there are incredibly valid reasons why to have additional acreage if you want to do a really state-of-the-art gun range like this town is doing.
I would say please go and visit the range and tell me that it's not state-of-the-art because it is state-of-the-art, and they've only done it on 3 acres. 3 to 4 acres includes their shop as well, so I totally disagree.
Dick, yes. Sorry. You can ask Mike something. Yes.
Sorry, is there any way to change that language at this point to make it less acreage, or is that acreage set in?
The council has set that when it adopted.
So that has already been set?
Yes, it's already set.
So
I mean, any ordinance can be changed, but you have to go through that entire process.
So in order to change that ordinance in the future, if anybody wanted it, say somebody had 10 acres and wanted to do an indoor range, or 5 acres, what?
The town council would have to change the zoning ordinance, and that would have to be based on the planning. You'd have to go through the whole same process again.
Thank you.
Very involved process.
My name is Richard Pike, and I've been interested in shooting since I was shooting woodchucks in the Matuna Kills, probably before most of you were born. I've been shooting at Peacedale for 30 years. I don't particularly shoot shotguns a lot, although I have in years past. I love to shoot pistol and rifle. So when they closed it down years ago, I had to move down to Bradford because they do have, but theirs is outdoors. So I'm really looking forward to this indoor range, a place that I can go and shoot that's close by. I have shot many times at Midstate, and I also frequent the area. There's a Tractor Supply across the street, which is neither here nor there, but when you're at Tractor Supply, you cannot hear the shooting going on at Midstate, which is right across the street. It's a very safe environment. I think it's going to be a great addition to the town. I can't wait for it to get started. I mean, my shooting is limited because I don't like to shoot when it's really cold, because I'm getting old, and I don't particularly like to shoot when it's really hot in the summer either, so I'm basically limited to pistol and rifle shooting in the spring and the fall. This is going to give me a chance to shoot year-round. I think it's going to be just one fantastic addition to the community. I can't wait for the place to be built, and it'll just further my ability to shoot when I want to shoot. So, anybody have any questions on that? I'd be happy to address them.
I think we got it, thanks.
Thanks, Dick.
There was one other man who wanted to comment for you. Sorry.
Good evening. William Beauchamp, 1140 Broad Rock Road, 24 years present. I don't mind the gun club. I don't mind people who shoot. I wouldn't mind shooting myself. Not myself, literally. All right. So, what I would say, the reprieve of what we would like as maybe closer neighbors, because I live on the west side of Broad Rock heading north, which is abutting the land, somewhat. Saturdays, Sundays, Easter Sunday, all you hear is gunshots going off constantly, and again and again and again. So some kind of reprieve, which I would like, I don't know how it satisfy anyone else, would be, could we have a weekend, a month, every month, that there's no scheduled skeet shooting? Go at it all day long on the interior. To have some kind of reprieve so families can enjoy their house, their property, without shooting all day long, Saturdays and Sundays. I say open it on Mondays, because we're not in our yards Mondays. That's about it. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Box.
Just short, and thank you. I just, all due respect to Mr. Wall, the decibel readings that he cited were done on my property. You could look in your own statutes. It tells you that when you measure sound for zoning purposes and annoyance purposes, you have to measure it on the property that it's coming from, closest to the source that it's coming from. So the readings that he gave you were 0.6 of a mile away. He should have done that at the stations that were going off. You know, the shotguns that were going off, or at least at his property line, and that's right in your own town ordinances. And a certain approved type of a meter has to be used, not something that you buy at Radio Shack for $29. So, I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up, and yes, I would love to have a weekend where there are no gunshots. Thank you.
Right. At this time, are there any further comments from the public? Any comments from the council at this point?
Mike, I just wanted to ask you another question about measuring the noise ordinance and measuring the noise out there. Is there an applicable ordinance that
Yes, you
addresses this?
measure from the property line where the noise is emanating from.
And what's the limit on the noise? Do you know? Is it a noise meter that we use? What?
Yeah, it would be a noise meter, and there are decibel levels that are objective decibel levels are set forth in the ordinance.
And who would measure that? Is it the police
Zoning
department?
enforcement officer or through police.
So it'd be the police or the building inspector?
Yeah, the police, I believe, have been trained specifically with the use of the noise meters and the models and how they work, et cetera. I don't know if Jeff also, probably just the police, yeah.
If we were going to measure it, we'd have to start from scratch.
Okay.
So, okay, so it would be the, Jeff would,
It would be the zoning enforcement office, and it would be the police department. It would require us probably for recertification. There's also two different types of sounds that's measured. There's impact sound within the ordinance, as well as just impact sound is where there's what a gunshot would be versus a constant noise. Each of those has different noise levels that would have to be measured. That would need to be done. We would need to look at new instrumentation, and we would look at the need for more certification for those officers that were going to be responsible for that activity.
You got another hand up.
Come forward, please.
Hello, Denise Carlson from Narragansett. The reason that I joined the Shooting Preserve as a charter member is because I was really looking forward to the indoor pistol and rifle range. I thought the meeting tonight was about a license for that particular venue. I'm a little confused as to why we're kind of haggling back and forth about the sound of a shotgun, the sound a shotgun makes. I know the sound of a shotgun. And I didn't think that was the reason we were here, but I could be wrong. I've spoken with Mr. Soderberg, and he told me about the plans for the indoor pistol and rifle range. I thought they sounded phenomenal. I can't go into all the details. It was a conversation a while ago. But it just seemed to me like it would be a real asset to South Kingstown. I know many people who would love it. The sound would be contained. And I also am aware that a good number of shotgun shooters may not shoot pistol and rifle. Me, I like it all. And I would really be looking forward to it, and I urge the council to approve the application for the license. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comments from the council at this point?
I'd just like to state, 1999, I built a house on Broad Rock Road. We lived there for 15 years. I spent some time at the property before we built, and I accepted that there was noise coming from the range. Lived there for 15 years, frankly, as someone else testified. After a while, you sort of don't hear it. Some people live right on the train tracks. You all have valid concerns. I think a lot of those concerns need to be addressed if these regulations are passed tonight. A lot of those concerns need to be addressed with the application for this special use permit. And as it relates to your property value with the outdoor noise, I guess your concerns are that there's an increase even though these regulations are on an indoor range. So if this passes tonight, I think that a lot of your concerns will be addressed in the process that's going forward. The special use permit, the planning board, the zoning board, and then it comes back to the council. I think, do I have that right, Mike?
You do. They have to go before those two boards before they get back in front of you.
Thanks, Joe. At this time, do I hear a motion to close the public debate?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's unanimous. And do I hear a motion
I
on
just-
this.
Before, can we have some discussion?
Yeah.
First?
Well, we can motion
You want the
second,
motion
then-
first? Well, I'd like to have some discussion.
Yeah.
We can-
Discussion first?
Well, let's put it on the table with a motion, and then we can discuss it. right?
Well, I think the motion is based on the discussion.
Can I just say one thing about the indoor range real quick?
Right.
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 So it would be appropriate to have a motion second, so we can have discussion.
Gotcha.
So we can still have
Right.
discussion. Do I hear that motion?
First.
Once I find it.
I'll move approval of Article 6 as amended.
Second.
So moved.
I
Any
wanna have
further
I
discussion?
want discussion.
Yes.
What we're doing here tonight, and I just want to make it clear, is what we're doing is putting together the licensing procedure for the indoor shooting range. So as Joe just said, you know, this is, the procedure will allow them to go forward, fill out the application, go forward to zoning and planning to get all these issues worked out. Now, I'm glad that we had this discussion last night, because I don't think there's any question in the applicant's mind or in anyone else's mind here that there's not going to be any outdoor rifle range, shooting range. Well, it's all, what was the letter? No outdoor gun range for rifles, pistols, or black powder guns. I think we made that pretty clear tonight. I think we're in agreement. Many of the people from Indian Lake and the surrounding areas, and the applicants, Mr. Waugh, Mr. Soderberg, Attorney Fay, everybody seems to be on board, so I'm glad we got this all out there. And we're going to send along the letters and the correspondence from Mr. Asillo, Mr. Fay, Mr. Alfred, and Mr. Frisella, so that the zoning board knows all about that also. So I think we can rest assured that we're just passing this motion that's before us is just to put together the licensing procedure for this indoor shooting range. But this by no means, we are not giving a license to Mr. Waugh or Mr. Soderberg, Sven tonight. We're just giving them the ability and the procedure to how to go forward from here. And they have to prove their case. And they know what they have to do. But anyway, I just want to make that clear to everybody. And for the reasons stated, I will vote for this license and procedure. And I'm glad we've made it clear how and what we want as an end result.
Thank you, Carol. Any other comments from the council?
She just covered it all.
All right. Well, all in favor of approving item 6?
Approving the amendments to Chapter 9, Article 6, indoor shooting range, as presented to you as amended and presented to you this evening.
All right, say aye.
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 All opposed? That carries unanimously.
And I'd just like to say to all of you, stay involved, go to the next meeting, as the meetings come about, and you want your concerns to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Michael.
Well,
Thanks, Joe.
Item B under public hearings. I'll give another moment for people to clear the room. Item B is a public hearing continued from March 23rd, 2015, relative to an application requesting a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance of the Town of South Kingstown, Article 3, Use Regulations, Section 301, Schedule of Use Regulations Table, Use Code 24.1, Drug or Alcohol Rehabilitation Facility. The proposed amendments would allow a drug or alcohol rehabilitation facility, Use Code 24.1, in R80 residential zones on parcels of land greater than 25 acres in area, with access to US Route 1 and subject to a special use permit. As shown below, application by Recovery Centers of America, LP, care of Callahan and Callahan, 3 Brown Street, Wickford. The last time we heard this, we were told we were going to get some letters from the law office about stipulations, so maybe we can begin talking about that.
A couple of items to be put on the
And
record.
yes, there's a letter that we received on Friday from the principal of Prout that will be entered into the record, as well as seems like letters generated by a petition potentially, dated April 10th, 2015, regarding statement in opposition to application of Recovery Centers of America, LP, for text amendment. Are those all the communications?
We have a communication dated April 7th from Matthew Callahan, representing Recovery Centers, with an attached letter regarding the stipulations that Recovery Centers was agreeing to the following conditions, and there are 3 of them. We also have a letter from the Prout School dated April 10th from David Carradini, indicating that the Prout School in the Diocese of Providence opposed changes to the legislative text that would permit the construction and operation of this facility adjacent to the school. We have 17 form letters basically from concerned residents and taxpayers. And we have a handful of emails all expressing concerns with the text amendment as proposed.
And all of those are and will be part of the record.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan, can you
Thank you, Mr. President, honorable council members. My name is James Callahan from Callahan and Callahan in North Kingstown. We represent RCA in their proposal, or in the townwide proposal for a text amendment. We were here last time on March 23rd, 2015. The public hearing was continued, as you know, so our abutting neighbors could weigh in more carefully on the proposal and the text amendment. And we submitted a letter outlining a number of our stipulations we would agree to, which is inclusive, but not exclusive, is what we would agree to, depending on what the council would like us to do and the zoning board down the line, if that does come to pass. There's been an obvious change in, I think, the tone of our discussions with the abutters in the past 3 or 4 days. I'd like to address a couple of those concerns, if I could, just in the outset. I think the first concern that we actually didn't get a copy of the letter from Prout. After I speak, I'd like to look at a copy if I could, but in any event, I think one of the concerns that's been presented is the roadway access, and Ms. Healy presented that at length last time. And the concern is that the southerly road access, which is adjoining to the courthouse property, I believe Prout has decided that they have done a title search of their own and thought that we don't have access to improve or maintain that road. Obviously, we have a different perspective on that. We did our own title search. We think we have the full ability to improve the road, maintain the road, and use the road, and actually widen it up to 50 feet, according to our deed research. And I think, I don't want to speak for Mr. Nato, of course, but he's going to take an opposite position. And I don't think that this council is in the position to make a legal assessment on the validity of the deed or the easement or what the actual status of that is. I think that's something to be dealt with either at a later date through the zoning board or actually through litigation, unfortunately. We'd like to avoid that at all costs. We're of the mind that we'd like to negotiate with Prout or talk with them and work with them in almost any respect to help make this text amendment at least happen. And that's a little bit of the situation we find ourselves in. We're dealing with this site-specific issue, but this is a town-wide text amendment for R80 zones, and that's what we're asking for. So for the road itself, if we can't use that southerly access portion, we still have access through the northern part of the site, near the water tower. The Legion of Christ does own that property. It's almost an L shape. We have the maps here as well. So we could use the easement that we have through that property, or that we own that property, to get to Tower Hill Road. So if we can't work something out with Prout for our mutual benefit, a better road, a wider road, a more safe road, then we'll explore other options. But like I said, this has been a long process with the school, and unfortunately it's taken a different turn, the 11th hour. And we're still of the mind to do what we can, but maybe that's come to pass. So in that perspective, I think the road access is an issue, but we're willing to deal with that with Prout or without Prout and make any changes we have to. The second point, I think, is there's a fear from the community that this facility and the patients they treat may be some kind of threat to Prout or the neighborhood. And unfortunately, we don't think that that's based on fact or evidence. It's really just a fear. As you saw today in the paper, hopefully, the opioid dependence epidemic in Rhode Island has hit a tremendous crescendo. Today, we were again noted as one of the top 5 states in the country for illicit drug use. And that has led to a dramatic increase in the number of babies born addicted to drugs. These facilities belong in open areas like this rural setting, and right now an applicant could put a facility like this down the street from Wakefield Elementary, across the street from the Guild, next to the playground, across from South Kingston High School, or even Peacedale Elementary School. Those are all allowed in R10, R20 zones. These facilities should be in rural settings where they're outside of the community in some respect, so that people can have privacy and they can attend these facilities without the attention or the density that we're talking about here. And to further that point, I know that the fear of the patients, whatever that may be, I don't think there's any evidence of any instances where a patient in a facility like this goes outside the facility and causes any kind of trouble. We looked for it, we couldn't find it. Maybe it's some anecdotal evidence, but we don't have it. On Columbia Street, there is a medical clinic, and that clinic services drug users. It's maybe a hidden fact, but it's a fact. That's 0.5 miles from Peacedale Elementary, 100 feet from the library, 200 feet from the Guild, and 0.2 miles from South Kingston High School. And all those things, I don't think there's been any issues with those people or that situation. And it's overlooked, but I think it has relevance here because of the issues we're facing. But like I said, this proposal is a town-wide text amendment. I don't want to get bogged down in the minutia. You're certainly welcome to give us or offer us any stipulations that you think may be appropriate, and we're willing to listen to all of them. Mr. Greenstein is here. He's happy to talk to you at length about his experience and what he can do. But the Technical Review Committee did approve this plan, or this proposal for the zoning amendment, and the Planning Board did too. And the Planning Board is responsible, expert, they know what they're doing. And they found it was consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning matrix in general. Like I said, I'm sure there's going to be other legal issues raised tonight, but if this is approved, then the zoning board and the planning board will both get second shots The planning board through the land development plan, and the zoning board through its whole hearing process. And the special use permit itself, if approved, you need 4 of 5 votes from the zoning board. It's not just a simple majority. So it's a high hurdle to overcome. And we understand that, but we think this is appropriate for the town, it's consistent for the town, and I ask you to look at this proposal in that perspective from a town-wide eye, not just this site-specific purpose. And after the public comment, I just ask for a few moments to sum up our position. And if Mr. Greenstein has any questions for him, please feel free to ask. So thank you very much.
James, before you leave the podium there, you mentioned that you might want to still, I mean, you do want to still have discussions with Proud about, you know, the right-of-way for one thing that seems to be an issue. Is this a case where continuance would be in order so you can have those discussions, or have we run against a timeline here where a continuance would stop?
We do have time issues. Mr. Greenstein can speak to those specifically. Obviously, we were somewhat undercut by the timing of the letter from Prout. I think that was delivered on Friday. I don't know. We didn't even get a copy. So we'd hoped that this would have been a more positive discussion of the past 3 weeks, but it didn't. So, you know, we have to move forward, I think, and that's our hope tonight. But we're willing to talk. I mean, maybe tonight we can take a break and talk, but I think our time frame is limited.
Yeah, the letter was April 10th, James.
Could we take a copy to look at, if that's all right? Just to review? Thank
you. Were there other questions for?
James, I was wondering, you talked about roadway access. Did you bring a map or anything you could show us which different access routes you are considering?
We have the large map that we had last time. I think that's accurately depicted now. Mr. Kristen from RCA is at the podium, or the easel now. The red outline is our potential property.
Mm-hmm.
The roadway access to the south is on the bottom of the map. That's where we believe we do have the ability to use that easement, to maintain it, to improve it, and to make use of it for our purposes. We think Representative Prout is saying that we don't. That's obviously a technical legal argument. In any event, if we can't come to some kind of agreement that we can use that access, we can still use the property access from the buildings, or Mr. Christie could point that out if he could, right in the middle, our buildings, sorry, and then up to the left, around the water tower. We're willing to develop that as a roadway. We believe we can do that. We may have to go before the state for a physical alteration permit, but that's our property. There's enough room. We had our engineers take a look at it the past few days. Obviously, the time was tight, but we did take a look at it. We believe we can do that, and we would do that. We were hoping for a mutually beneficial agreement with Prout to help them, to help us, and, you know, an arm's length from the patients to the students. But that doesn't seem to be the case. But like I said, we're not going to close the doors. That's just not the way Mr. Greenstein's approached this project from the beginning.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we'll take comments from the public. And again, this is in regard to a zoning change. We would be allowing development on R80 with a special use permit to site these rehabilitation centers. So if at all possible, please keep your comments to that issue at hand. We've had over an hour of testimony on the dangers, theoretically, of this center.
Good evening, Honorable Council. I'm David Carradini, the principal of Prout School, and I will provide a letter to RCA and to Callahan tomorrow morning. In the interest of brevity, I want to recap the principal arguments in the letter that was entered into the record on Friday. I want to talk about how Prout's position has evolved, what Prout means to South Kingstown, and what does the text amendment mean for Prout and South Kingstown. So in response to the conversation last week, where really the council urged the school and those involved to continue discussions to figure out what exactly was going on, we did that. We conducted a general survey of all of our parents, including incoming parents and other interested parties, and we found out that unlike the results of our listening sessions, which had been attended by about 80 people, where RCA did very generously make their time available and explain the project, the lion's share of people responding to the general survey were absolutely opposed to the project. And the issues revolved around safety, and the issues revolved around the access and egress issues. But there's one other issue that I think, and I do want to say this. When RCA says they want to be a good neighbor, I believe that. But that's not at issue. What's at issue is the public perception of the school. And so I believe that RCA would in fact would agree to every stipulation the council would impose, the planning board, they would, because they want their facility and they also want to be good neighbors. The question is, despite their goodwill, what does the presence of that facility mean for Prout? Even supporters of the project in our survey were concerned about negative publicity. Several respondents said that they would pull their currently enrolled students and that they wouldn't send their future students. Some expressed concern that the presence of the center would turn the school into a laughingstock and that would irreparably harm the reputation of the school. So on the basis of that information, which, as I said, we surveyed our entire population, on the basis of the perception of irreparable harm to the school, even if RCA were able to meet every stipulation and every condition, and even if they were willing to be good neighbors, we still have this massive publicity problem that affects the school. So what does that mean actually for South Kingstown, because you're the councilors of South Kingstown? Prout has been in Wakefield for almost 50 years, and we're planning to be around for at least another 150 years. That's what we want. We want to be here for the long haul. We've educated 3 generations of South County residents. In fact, I know the grandmother and the grandson of students of Prout. The grandmother's an alumna, and her grandson's in the school. Several people here are alumni of the school. They currently have children enrolled in the school, and they'd like to see their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren enrolled someday. We provide the only Catholic high school education in all of southern Rhode Island, the only one. We're the only high school in the state to offer the International Baccalaureate program, and we get great results for that. We offer an important opportunity for parents and students who seek a local Catholic high school education. And our evidence indicates, the evidence that we've discovered indicates that all of this would be compromised significantly were this project to go through, despite RCA's willingness to be good neighbors. And so what would a text amendment mean? I understand the argument and the strategy. I wouldn't speak to the legal issues so much, but I do want to say that I think the fact that this is a townwide amendment is a bit of a red herring, because it's a townwide amendment designed for a specific project. So we do need to speak about specifically what does the text amendment mean for Prout and for South Kingstown. What it means is that there's a significant materially adverse decline in enrollment for the school that begins next year. It means a substantial weakening or a loss of an important educational alternative that is long established and valued in South Kingston and South County. It therefore means a cultural and an educational impoverishment of South County, especially at a time, and ironically at a time, when Rhode Islanders are working hard to make the state attractive. And it also means loss of employment for faculty and staff, several of whom are South Kingston residents and taxpayers. So I think despite RCA's willingness to be good neighbors, and again, I say that I believe them when they say that, I think that nevertheless there are harms that we will not be able to overcome that will significantly impact the school and the town of South Kingstown. And therefore, for that reason, the Prout School has moved to a position of opposition to this project.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have Mr. Caradini, why did you change your mind? I mean, you were here on March 23rd, and you stood up and you were supportive of this project. And now here you are, 2 weeks later, and you've done a total turnaround. I mean, it seems to me that this was in the works, and I just don't understand the change, the complete change in position.
Well, I'd say two things about it. I'd say that our first position was not one of support, it was one of no objection. And we did say we would look for additional information. And the second part of your answer, so therefore I would say that our position evolved from one of no objection to one of objection. And I would say secondly, specifically in answer to your question, the town council did suggest to the school rather strongly that we go back and continue to explore with our community what would be the impacts and ramifications to the school. We did that and got decidedly different information than from our community than we had when we conducted the listening sessions. And so the decision is really data-driven.
Well, no objection is, when you stand up at the podium and say, I have no objection to this project, that generally means you're supportive. But without leaving that aside, the other thing I'd like to know is when the courthouse was built near Prout School, was there an objection to that?
I don't know. There may be some people in the audience who can answer that question, but I don't know.
Steve, by any chance, were you around?
You talking about the courthouse in Kingston?
Well, no. That's where it used to be.
I was around, but I don't recall that there was any objection at that time. But obviously, it was a state public service that needed to be provided in the county.
I'm just curious, at the last meeting, we did request that they have a few stipulations, which they agreed to. I know I think all of us were very interested in seeing certain things limited. Did the people that you asked, did you express these
We did not,
conditions to them?
We did not. Madam Councilwoman, we did, in fact, in the listening sessions, discuss many issues that came up, and they did, RCA did, on the basis of those conversations, offer some changes to the original, to the original offer. The issue at hand, I think, for Prout, is the public perception piece.
Right. Well, in here, they have agreed to not provide any services to sexual offenders, not provide any services to violent felons, and to not have any court-ordered, and it's not incarceration. It has to be voluntary. So,
Madam, I understand that. I think that many high school prospective parents of a high school community would say, very simply, wouldn't even get to the merits of the safety issue. They'd say, I can choose a high school that is not next to a recovery center, or I can choose one that is, and it's just a simple decision to say no, without hearing the merits.
Well, I think that was part of what we were discussing with you the last time to satisfy the parents of the incoming students and the students that were there, to show that we were concerned with the safety issues that they were concerned with. Like Rachel just said, that they won't take any sex offenders, no violent criminals, and no court-ordered offender treatment. I mean, that seemed to address many of the needs that we were considering 2 weeks ago.
And that information, the PowerPoint they had provided to us, as well as facts that they had provided to us, were in fact distributed with the survey.
Mm-hmm.
So the precise answer to your question, Madam, we did not specifically ask that question, but the information was provided.
So all these people who got the survey knew that they were agreeing not to take those particular clients?
I can't stipulate that everybody read every page. I can stipulate that the school provided all the information, all the relevant information that RC had provided to us, we provided to our school public. And that the result was resoundingly in opposition because of the perception issue.
How about as far as the access and egress? If we have if there's some kind of change in the roadway access, would that make a difference?
I'd like to defer that conversation to council.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions for the principal? Thank you, Mr. Carradine.
Thank you very much. We do have, from the Prout community, we have a student who'd like to speak, and we have some parents who'd like to speak as well.
Everyone is welcome.
Thank you very much.
Come forward, state your name and where you're from.
Yeah, my name is Richard Tuoni. I'm from West by God, Kingston, and I'm here to talk about, on behalf of the Senior Center, I urge you to complete the wireless Wi-Fi at the Senior Center. And since you wanted to save words, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, I have 4 of them.
Is this for the public hearing about the RCA Center?
I don't think so. I don't.
Thank you, sir.
There's an agenda item this evening on the fiber.
Oh, that's okay.
It's under new business.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we haven't gotten to that part of our agenda, actually, yet. Thanks.
Okay. It'll give us a chance to look at them, check them out.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Cook. I'm a resident and voter here in South Kingstown, and I'm currently a senior at the Prout School. And when I say this, I think I am speaking on behalf of the entire Prout student body. To be perfectly honest, the outcome of the decision regarding the proposed RCA complex to be built contiguous with the Prout School doesn't directly affect me, as I will be graduating come June. That being said, it will directly affect my school, which, over the past 4 years, has become a part of me. So I stand before you tonight hoping to preserve that part of me and in firm opposition to the proposed zoning ordinance. We must begin by asking ourselves, is it honestly a good idea to have a drug rehab facility located on the property directly abutting a school, let alone a high school? As a high schooler myself, I know that we are naturally curious and will likely want to explore the property. I know that many students currently do, whether it is for a jog or just to explore. Our cross-country team even utilizes the land for running. Would the RCA facility deter this? I also know that high schoolers are not always the wisest of people either. We do a lot of stupid things. Would RCA's installation lead students to try to meet its patients, perhaps even share drugs or alcohol with them, as anyone who denies the existence of drugs or alcohol in a high school is incredibly naive? With the Prout School, my school, already facing declining enrollment, I feel that the installation of the RCA complex directly adjacent to Prout would only serve to further increase this declining enrollment. I have asked around the school. I have spoken with my peers, with parents, and with faculty members alike. And I have honestly not found one person in support of the development of this RCA complex. That certainly says something. It says that the financial boost that the school and surrounding town would receive would not outweigh the cost at which it is received. It suggests that the school would indeed face further enrollment drops, and it suggests that the school would suffer as a result of this facility's installation. It does not, however, even begin to imply that this proposed facility would not accomplish good for Southern Rhode Island. In fact, I, along with many others, believe that drug and alcohol rehab facilities such as RCA are great benefactors to our modern society, but we must greatly think about where they are located. Directly next door to a high school is not a smart place for a drug rehab facility. I know that the plot of land they're proposing this facility for is a beautiful, serene tract of land. But there are plenty of other similarly large, beautiful, and serene parcels of land available elsewhere in southern Rhode Island that seem to be perfectly suitable for this proposed facility. A final issue that the proposed facility will pose is the problem of traffic. The traffic situation is not currently good, and added vehicles entering and exiting on a daily basis would only serve to worsen the situation. As Mr. Callahan mentioned, RCA has proposed widening the back exit between Prout's property and that of the courthouse, but there is honestly not enough room for a 50-foot wide road there. If they put in a 50-foot road, it would infringe upon not only the courthouse's parking lot, but also on our athletic fields. And at dismissal, there is a large influx of parents picking students up, student drivers leaving, and buses leaving. I don't believe that adding more traffic to the equation would solve anything, nor do I believe that widening the road and fixing it would do anything either. I would like to conclude with this point. If the proposed location for this facility were located next to any public school in this town, or any other town for that matter, it would not even be considered. Why then should its proposal next to a private school make it any different? A school is a school, only Prout is my school, and I do not wish to see enrollment further dwindle due to the installation of an RCA facility directly adjoining to it. So I humbly implore you, reject this zoning ordinance for a drug and alcohol rehab center on the campus directly behind the Prout School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Corley, I live in West Kingston, and as far as the amendment goes, it's kind of like the Larchwood Inn. The difference being Larchwood Inn, they had an acceptable use for that zoning area, and I am all for a rehab center. Been sober 15 years, also all for it. I'm all for it. It's a medical facility and all that kind of things. I think the argument is, do we want to make a specific change to a specific zoning ordinance for a specific piece of land? And they have to be able to build a facility someplace in our town. There should be a zoning that allows that, and right now they should meet that stipulation, unless you want to change the zoning. That's how I see it. And the reality is, I was trained in nuclear power. Unfortunately for them, if nobody knew, nobody would know. And we trained in Windsor, Connecticut. Nobody in Hartford knew there's a nuclear reactor right up the road. Seattle was rated one of the best places to live, and one of the stipulations was there was no nuclear reactors within like 50 miles. Well, there's 8 submarines and all kinds of surface ships that have nuclear reactors on. If nobody knows, nobody really cares. And it's unfortunate. I think it'd be a nice place, 25 acres, to have a rehab facility. I really do. I think it'd be a great place to have it. But you got neighbor issues, bad ones. And so I kind of think about there are places you can build a place in South Kingston, but you're changing an ordinance for a specific place, and the neighbor says he doesn't want it, and my feeling is the neighbor should win.
Members of the Town Council, my name is Daniel Ferris. I'm the Superintendent of Catholic Schools for the Catholic Diocese of Providence. I speak on behalf of the diocese this evening in opposing the change in the text amendment. From the first contact between RCA and the Prout School, the Diocese of Providence has been actively involved in discussions and the developments of the plans to locate the drug facility behind the school. We do fully support the diligence of Principal Carradini and his staff at the Prout School. We believe they have made every reasonable effort to explore the safety concerns, the issues that parents have raised, and the public perception generated by this proposed facility. This is what we had asked them to do. We have concluded that the proposed facility presents irreconcilable problems, and these problems present real threats to the school and the community. Shared entrance and egress between the school and the proposed drug and alcohol rehab center, outpatient traffic in and out of the proposed facility, possible changes in the RCA business plan in the future that could involve a different payer mix or different use of the facility. As Mr. Carradini has said, the public perception that without completely separate operations, the school cannot guarantee the safety of current and future students. And declining enrollment of students presently at the school because of the possible RCA acquisition. Finally, prospective parents who have told us they will not even consider the school for their children if RCA is located on adjacent property. These problems, as I have said, are real threats to the school and the school community. I respectfully request that the town council do what is right for the students, for the parents, and for the community. Please reject this proposed amendment.
Members of the Town Council, Robert Duffy. I'm the parent of an incoming student. I would like to focus on the comprehensive plan question because that really hasn't been spoken about a lot. It was referred to by one speaker earlier. The R80 zone is a rural residential zone, as you know, a low-density district. A drug and rehab facility is expressly prohibited, use code 24.1, in this zone, and it's not permitted as a special use. I understand there are 7 zones in South Kingstown that would permit this facility. Now, if those zones aren't appropriate, as Mr. Callahan suggested earlier, it is not the right option to create another zone where it is not permitted. The right option might be to change the zones where it is currently permitted, to restrict it. So, for example, you might not have a drug and rehab facility next to Wakefield Elementary School. That is what should be discussed today. The zone change that is requested and is before the council, obviously the council has the power to amend the zoning ordinance, but I would suggest that the town council needs to ensure that any change is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And if it isn't consistent with that vision, then it cannot vote in favor of this change. As you know, the comprehensive plan is a result of a long process, a visionary process. 2 public forums were held. There was public outreach. There was community surveys. There were interviews of public and private people and officials. And the concept that emerged from that process was that South Kingstown would protect and enhance its identity. The mandate was to protect and maintain that identity as a rural community. And that is why R80 zones were protected. Over 25-acre zones were protected. And that's why one of the reasons drug and rehab facilities are not permitted in those zones today. That reason does not disappear because a particular business wants to put a particular facility on a particular parcel that is prohibited in that zone. What they're really asking for is a variance. They would never get a variance. They could not meet the test for a variance. And so the way to go at it is to change the zone to permit this use. And we would suggest that is going at it a little bit backwards. The Planning Board recommended to you, and now you have it on your laps, that this be approved. But I would ask you to consider how this particular zone change is consistent with the comprehensive plan and how have they met the purposes of zoning set forth in the state statute. For example, the purpose of zoning, which is that land use be consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city that was adopted. I don't see any way that could possibly be met, and that is the burden that must be met for you to vote in favor of this. Therefore, I strongly urge you to deny the request, or at the very least, send this back to the Planning Board with a specific instruction that if you look at this and you find and detail how this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, that you limit it so that it will not permit such facilities within at least a half a mile of a secondary school, high school, or any similar educational facility. Thank you.
My name's Tom Ritchie. I own the farm next door to the proposed rehab place. I have two daughters. They both graduated Prout. One's 50, one's 49. Prout has done a fantastic job. They're both professionals. It's a great school. I've had, excuse me, I used to own Norwood Chevrolet. We had a couple of hundred people working for us, and I had a lot of exposure with drugs. Not me, but people working for me, who went to rehabs. They got more drugs in rehabs than they did out of rehabs. Okay, and this is a fact. And I didn't even know I was supposed to be here tonight. The principal called me and asked me if I'd come. I don't want to bore you, but I think it's a very, very bad thing to this town. That's all I have to say.
Good evening, Michelle Fonseca. I'm a resident of the town of South Kingstown. I also happen to be a graduate of Prout Memorial High School, graduating in 1983. My niece is here tonight. She's a graduate of Prout. I have a daughter that graduated 2 years ago. I currently have a sophomore. My son, my middle son, is a sophomore at Prout. I have he's now 10, and he wants to go to Prout. For the first time in my life, I don't know if I want to send him. And you asked, Councilwoman, why the about face? The about face is because of parents like me and parents that you see here, that as more information became available to what this development was, how it was going to impact the school, what it was going to do to the Prout culture, environment, perception. That's why we're here tonight, because as a result of a lot of discussion and a lot of listening, and I do have great respect for what RCA is trying to do, and I think we all support what they are trying to do, but quite frankly, I have a bachelor's degree and a law degree, and I don't think I can say it better than Mr. Cook did, because he did a phenomenal job of expressing all our concerns. I will, however, join Mr. Duffy in saying that this really is impermissible spot zoning. Mr. Callahan had said you're looking at a townwide text amendment. This is not a townwide text amendment. This affects 5 parcels of real estate. The text amendment was deliberately presented to you in this fashion so that it would be an end run around the comprehensive permit and around a proper zoning change procedure. I went to the town planner's office. I looked at the parcels of real estate affected. One of them is Whaley Farm. I called Karen Whaley today, and I said, did you know that your property could potentially be rezoned for a drug rehab use? She had no idea. Maybe a representative of her family is here tonight. There were 3 other parcels. One is a lovely piece of open space property over by the fire station off of Route 1. Again, no one's proposing a development there. There's another piece on Post Road. No one is proposing a rehab facility there. This is spot zoning, and it is impermissible procedurally. I ask you on that basis alone to deny the requested relief. Other than that, I would just like to say it is a very real concern that the viability of Prout and its 50-year legacy in this town is an issue. I was at 2 meetings where parents were extremely emotional about this issue. We're very concerned about their children's safety and a variety of factors that go into the decision of where to send their children to school. I, as an alum that has a long-standing relationship with the school, may not send my children to that school, and it is really an emotional issue. Putting aside the safety measures, I listened to the safety measures. After the first meeting, I walked out of there and I thought, they're doing really good things. But the second meeting had a very different tone. It was much more business-like. It was about their business plan. They are in this to make money. I respect them greatly, and I think it's fantastic that they're going to be able to make money providing a service. but they are making money at the expense of a community that has been here for a very long time. This town makes money off our students and their parents. The communities that Prout serves span Coventry, Newport, Portsmouth, Middletown, Westerly, Richmond. All of these families come to Wakefield. They shop at Wakefield Mall. They go to Belmont's. They eat at Panera Bread. They go to Applebee's for dinner. The kids go to the movies. These are all economic benefits that Prout provides to our community. It's a safe, wonderful, Catholic educational environment. It is in jeopardy, and I ask you to keep that in mind. Among the other things that I heard by going to 2 meetings, as experienced individually as these development team members are, they've never operated a rehab facility as a team. That is something to keep in mind. It's something that parents are concerned about. None of them live in Rhode Island, let alone Wakefield. Initially, they told us they were limited to 131 beds. At the second meeting, they said they had expansion plans. Initially, they told us no outpatient services. At the second meeting, they said we have outpatient services. These are reasons why parents are here tonight. We have great concern over how this development is going to mesh with the high school community. And I can stand up here as a parent and say, I'm worried about my kids being exposed to drugs. Sure, they're exposed to drugs. But when a high school student tells you it's a bad idea, you have to listen to it. I've talked to students. I've talked to my own son. He's relatively oblivious. I've talked to other students. They really make it a mockery. They go down there, they walk the grounds, they run the grounds. And speaking of mockery, I talk to other people in the community. I talk to other professionals. I say, oh, they're proposing a drug rehab center behind Prout. People scoff at the idea of putting a drug rehab center behind Prout. This is what we're faced with. So I ask you, for the procedural reason alone, do not permit spot zoning. Otherwise, I implore you to please do not allow this, because it's going to do irreparable harm to Prout. Thank you.
My name is Carl Sevo. I live in Narragansett. Occasionally, I have a need, request to pick up my granddaughter at Prout and bring her home to a city that wasn't mentioned by the previous speaker. My granddaughter, Gabby, comes from Warwick. When she has after-school facilities, I pick her up. Gabby has 3 younger sisters who also want to go to Prout. I fear that Prout won't be there for them. Let me turn this around just a little bit. Let's pretend that RCA was up and running. And let's say that someone gave Prout the land that they currently operate on, but they needed money from a bank to open up a high school, and they went to the bank with the proposal. What do you think the response from the bankers would be? They'd be laughed out of the bank. Prout was here first. They came here because of the current zoning. Don't change it. This is very serious. The balance of Prout's future is in your hands. Please consider it seriously.
Now, in the future, folks, please hold your applause to the end, or, it's not completely appropriate.
Very
So,
good.
Go on.
So, Joe Marasco, I live in Narragansett. I have a son that's in Prout now and a daughter that will be starting there, frankly, regardless of what you guys do on this issue in September. But I know there are a lot of other parents that don't feel that way. I've spoken to an awful lot of folks that were contemplating LaSalle Academy, Prout, Hendricken, and it's going to have a dramatic impact if these folks are allowed to do what they want to do. There was a question asked of Mr. Carradini, and why didn't you come up and vocally object at the outset? And I think the key reason is the two stories that we've been provided by RCA, and I'm not going to be as kind and gentle because I don't believe that they've been as forthright as they should have been with us. The first story occurred that this was going to be a black car service, like the Betty Ford Clinic. And of course, I scratched my head and said, wait a minute, there's only one Betty Ford Clinic, and that's in California. It services the whole United States of America. And it's 100 beds, and they can pretty much stay full. This facility is 130 beds. That's what's proposed. That's before the second meeting, by the way, where that story changed a little bit about expansion plans. But at 130 beds, that's larger than Butler Hospital, okay? That's more beds. I'm going to repeat that because I think everybody here knows that Butler Hospital is the largest facility in the state of Rhode Island servicing those suffering from mental illness. This facility is larger in terms of the number of beds than Butler Hospital. On inquiry, we learned that it isn't Betty Ford, where everybody who's rich and famous shows up in black car limousine service. As we were told by RCA, we learned that anybody who has access to medical coverage pursuant to the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, will have access to the facility. Now, they did indicate in that meeting that, in fact, they would have some additional screening. They would try to stop anybody that has sexual offenders background and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that they anticipate by their own plan that 90% of the people that will be there are actually anyone that can get Obamacare. In the first meeting, we were told that there would be no that there would be no outpatient services at that facility. In the second meeting, Mr. O'Neill, excuse me, on St. Patrick's Day was the meeting. It seemed a little odd to me that Mr. O'Neill would be addressing us on St. Patrick's Day. But putting that aside, he told us, no, in fact, we're looking at outpatient services right there on that facility as well. And also, he initially indicated that the folks that would be their target group would be within 30 miles of the school. He then said, well, no, that's our primary market, but then we'd be going to a tertiary market of 60 miles and then an overall market of 90 miles for our folks that would inhabit our 130-bed facility. Why do I tell you all this? Well, number one, this changing story, but number two, the economic viability of this. Butler Hospital tried to have sort of an exclusive drug rehabilitation center. It was called the Lodge Facility, L-O-D-G-E. They tried to have 12 beds of upscale, if you will, drug and alcohol rehabilitation, and they couldn't keep it open. They couldn't keep it open. Anyway, so I think the economic viability is a big deal, because what do they do next? Because you know what? This isn't Lifespan. This is a for-profit entity. They're going to have to make changes, and they're going to have to make plans. And guess what? At the second meeting, we addressed that with Mr. O'Neill. And Mr. O'Neill said, well, yes, expansion, we've considered that, and what we're considering for expansion would be housing for those that successfully graduate our 30-day program. Scratched my head again. I said, sounds a heck of a lot like a halfway house right there for the folks that are across the street at the Commons and everybody else in the town in Narragansett to deal with. But anyway, so be it. At the first meeting, we were told that anybody outside of the facility would be supervised. Well, that isn't accurate either. At the second meeting, the big dollar guy, Mr. O'Neill, came in, and I don't remember what his title is with the entity, but he told us the opposite, that no, these are not people that are criminals, and no, we wouldn't be supervising them outside. Why, you know, it's a crazy thing. It was sort of the impression that he gave us, that no, that would not be the case. So when the question is asked, why does Prout and their parents and the administration now object it? Because there's a little bit more information that we have obtained. And there is no background. These folks have never opened or run a drug or alcohol rehabilitation facility. Why is this happening? Well, look nationally at, this is the new healthcare industry. These folks are in this for a reason, to make money. They're investing $220 million up and down the East Coast to open these facilities for one reason, and that's to make money. When the current plan doesn't work, they're going to go to another plan to make money. And that's a huge concern to the folks at Prout. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. When my son started at Prout, and even as we continue there, we have no concerns, we have no worries when he goes to basketball games and he's there on the campus. When he goes to plays there, it's a wonderful place to be. It's going to be a little different. My daughter starts next year, and I will feel very differently knowing, actually, let me go backwards for 1 minute. They also finally acknowledge that they anticipate that about 80% of their patients will be opiate users, okay, and will be in heroin users, and will be in rehabilitation for that. I'm going to feel very differently at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, when my children are leaving Prout knowing that the heroin addicts are in the woods behind the school. It doesn't belong there. It's absurd. I put a challenge out to my friends, and some of them are pretty bright people, and I said, I need you guys to come up with something worse than a drug and alcohol abuse facility, rehabilitation facility, next to a high school. They couldn't do it. It's about the worst possible thing you could put there. Finally, somebody did come up and like, a halfway house for sex offenders would be worse, Joe. I said, oh, congratulations, you came up with one. It's a bad idea, and it shouldn't be there. And we certainly shouldn't be doing spot zoning for that purpose. Two other real quick points. You guys represent the town at South Kingston, so you're thinking, hey, this is great for our tax base, it's $5 million, et cetera, et cetera. The diocese doesn't want the property. They've been pretty clear. You are going to get something on that property that will increase the tax base. Don't let it be this. Two, Prout currently, why should we care about Prout? Prout educates an awful lot of kids that may otherwise be in your South Kingstown schools. So there is definitely a benefit there, as well as the economic impact of bringing other folks in. Thanks so much for your time, and I hope you do the right thing.
Mr. Greenstein, would you care to come to the podium to talk about any of those allegations? No. Yeah, thank you. You'll be able to speak after.
Sure. It's a difficult subject, I think, to talk about because the word that I've been hearing over and over again from parents and from the Prout administrators are perception. We had a meeting, JP and I, this morning with someone at the Department of Health and Human Services who made a comment to us that one of the problems that Rhode Island has is everyone wants a drug and alcohol treatment facility. Everyone wants a solution to this problem. They just don't want it in their backyard. And there's a reason for that. There's a stigma associated with the types of people that develop alcoholism and substance use disorders. And I can tell you right now, from being in this industry for 15 years, the majority of these people are good people. All of these people are good people. A lot of them are kids. The demographics that we see these days in this business are kids that are getting addicted to pain medications, that are picking up heroin because it's a cheap alternative, and they're dying. And the reason why they're dying is because no one wants a service like this. because there's this stigma associated with who these people are and the threat that they present. And it's unfortunate. We had substantial conversations with Prout about safety and security. I thought, saw eye to eye on nearly all of them. In fact, David Carradini had said RCA's strict safety regulations for their patients and their concern for the safe traffic patterns lead us to believe that their facility would pose no more risk to Prout than the courthouse. That was like 2 weeks ago. So it really, kind of begs the question to me, is this really about safety? Is this really about, substantial concerns, or is it about perception and enrollment? And unfortunately, the problem why we don't see these types of facilities come up is this perpetual stigma associated with these, with the people that need help, unfortunately. And I challenge anyone in this room to tell me they don't know someone that suffers from this disease or is in recovery from this disease. It's not just in your town in many cases. It's in our living room, it's in our bedrooms with a spouse, and it's hard for me to hear. Unfortunately, I've been doing this for such a long time. I've, personal experiences with this. It's hard to hear this broad brush that's painted about the type of people that need help and that they are going to be hiding in the woods, waiting for an opportunity to take advantage of a child. It's upsetting stereotype, unfortunately. All of that said, with respect to the security things, we feel confident that we can satisfy anyone's criteria for safety, whether it is our own criteria, which quite frankly is stringent, whether it's Prout's and their family and their parents' criteria, whether it's Chief Vespia's criteria and the police department's criteria, whether it's the State Bureau of Behavioral Health, whether it's our voluntary accreditation bodies. We know that we can do that. We feel very confident that we can work with our engineers and come up with the right way to provide access to the site. And unfortunately, it comes down once again, unfortunately, to a stigma issue. And I hope that the board could see through that and put, trust the process, allow that, and allow the process in front of zoning to condition, the hell out of, this program to make sure that we have all those things in place. We've never stopped guaranteeing that we would make reasonable, that we would be reasonable, we would be flexible, we'd be accommodating. And it really felt like that was a two-sided event until it wasn't, until it was incredibly inflexible, and it's unfortunate. So if there's any specific security or other concerns that I can address, I'd love to do that, but it's just my perception of what I've heard so far.
I heard a couple particular points raised by perhaps the last few speakers about plans for expansion, how they changed between meetings, and yeah, if you could answer that question.
Yeah, I think in terms of plans for expansion, I didn't hear that. I know that Mr. O'Neill didn't know the exact bed count, so I do remember him saying something like 120 or 140, but we've never misrepresented that number. It's been in writing in a variety of different ways. I think it might be in writing to the town. If it's not, we're happy to do that. So that's not really an issue. The outpatient is something that's evolved over time through both architectural programming and clinical programming. But that's something that has been straightforward with both the police department and with the planning people, so that's not been, a last-minute surprise. And any other issue I'm not really aware of. But again, I imagine those things would be fully stipulated in, on zoning board level, in terms of capacity or services, those types of things.
So you're saying at the zoning board level for the, if we get to this point, this special use permit, you'd be willing to entertain not doing the outpatient?
I don't know about that, but I think we'd be willing to entertain. It's true, I think we'd be willing to entertain caps on, on capacity, and I think we'd be willing to entertain, the types of services that we do or do not provide, but I can tell you that research is very clear that offering a full continuum of care is more effective than offering just one disparate part. And I think we'd be doing patients a disservice by offering just this kind of acute care model and not offering them a longer kind of longitudinal care.
Other? No, that's not appropriate. Questions for Mr. Greenstein? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jean Rotatori. I have a son who is a sophomore at the Prout School. My daughter is scheduled to enroll as a freshman in the fall. In addition, I am a faculty member. This zoning change, text change proposal must stop now and not be simply passed as a text change to be resolved somewhere down the line in subsequent zoning meetings. Any change that happens tonight will affect that property adjacent to Prout forever, regardless of whether RCA's proposal gets approved. I fully agree and support with the other speakers, the students, Mr. Duffy, Mrs. Fonseca. The viability of our school is at stake. People have talked about perceptions. That is exactly what a private high school is all about, is perceptions. We can choose to send our children to another school. If this goes through, there is no going back for Prout. Even the simple text change, that lot will be changed permanently. Our new full-time job will be managing the abutter instead of educating our children. I don't understand how the town could offer a business, welcome a new business when it is to the direct detriment to an existing institution. The survey that was conducted since we were last here 3 weeks ago overwhelmingly opposed it from the stakeholders of the Prout community, the parents, the students, the faculty, and the people who haven't even thought of sending their children here. It shouldn't be to the detriment of our school. Every day, between the students, the faculty, the family members who drive in and out, bring at least 600 people into your community, to your beautiful community. I love Prout. The only reason I'm standing here is because I care about it and I want it to continue. We volunteer in your community gladly, and we think we enrich your community, and that's a mutually beneficial relationship. This is a for-profit facility. I was there when they presented to the faculty, and they said that there would be no outpatient services. And then I went to the meeting a few days before the last South Kingstown meeting, and they're talking about outpatient services. Their story is changing. They are for profit. My recommendation is that they simply site their facility where it is permitted. Okay? Find a lot that already is permitted, that is consistent with the town's plan, and proceed. But instead, I know you've said it's not site-specific, but really it is, and the detriment that can be caused to an existing institution will be irreversible. And you will lose a treasure, and so will I. And people's jobs will be in jeopardy. and there will be a ripple effect in your community. So I implore you to please reconsider and not allow this text change. Thank you.
Going forward, folks, I'm going to have to limit the times of the comments. We need to, wrap this hearing up and then wrap our meeting up. So I'll be holding people to 2 minutes.
Okay, I guess I'm the first with the 2-minute time limit. Okay, my name is Joe Coffey, Joseph Coffey. I'm a Charlestown resident, like so many parents, South County, Washington County. I'm very happy that my daughter next year plans to attend Prout. I have a couple of nephews. I have a niece in Prout right now. And one thing I just am amazed about how often I hear is how much they love Prout and how much their parents are so excited about going to Prout. I think I also happen to be a principal in a different district in Warwick, so I see it from a different perspective as well. I look at it and I think that if they were ever going to consider putting this type of a center next to Bayview, I think there is absolutely no way that the East Providence Council would even consider it. I'm sure if LaSalle, if they were considering putting one right next to LaSalle, and I can't say maybe there's one nearby, but I can't imagine them putting one adjacent to LaSalle and it being accepted. Hendricken, if they were to take part of Morris Farm and put a rehabilitation center there, I know that, and I've seen the council in Warwick, I just know they wouldn't even think about it. It's common sense, it's prima facie, it's just something you don't do. As the gentleman said before, it really is one of the most absurd things to even think about. How it got to this point, that this is even being considered, is very concerning. And I think there'll be a lot of regret to go around. I'm not here to discuss, I can't say, as far as statistically, the connection between crime and people that are addicted to drugs, although I can say that I have had personal and professional experience with this type of thing. And I think we do know that anyone in that situation, especially if they're in a withdrawal situation or they're in a desperate enough situation, there always can be a potential for that. So even if it is just one time or 2 times and it becomes a major or a significant issue, and that first time that it happens, then it's going to be something that people are going to regret. I think it's, when we speak about regret, I think it's something that the council members may very well regret once this gets to be an issue, like at the time of the election, and people are concerned about this. Right. And even in the future, we may look back and say, what happened, who actually let this happen? How did this possibly happen to this gem of a school? So I implore you to really reconsider this. This is really just doesn't make any sense. If I just say one more thing, that I know that the gentleman here had said that in South Kingstown, they talked about the rehabilitation center there being a half a mile away from the school. Well, half a mile away is an entirely different thing than something that's adjacent. It's a whole different issue. Thank you.
Mr. President, I hope you're not going to hold me to 2 minutes.
I will not hold you to 2 minutes. We're done with
this. Thank you. My name is Richard Nadeau. I'm an attorney at Partridge, Snow and Hahn, and I'm representing the owner of the property, which is the Roman Catholic Bishop of Providence, and the tenant at the property, which is the Prout School. I want to focus on legal reasons why you cannot pass this requested zone change. First of all, before I even start that, I'd like to point out that we're not sitting here saying, don't put this next to me, as RCA's representative said. We're saying put it in an approved zone. There are approved zones for this type of facility within the town of South Kingstown. Use one of those. You don't have to go and create a whole new zone change to fix a problem that doesn't exist. Now, the first point I want to make is that any kind of zone change has to be consistent with the comprehensive community plan. The planning board, I'm not sure really did its job, because When you look at the planning board minutes from February 3rd of 2015, they say that the planning board finds these amendments are consistent with the South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan as follows: land use element, overall goal, to promote orderly growth patterns based upon the natural, cultural, and historic character of the town, the land suitability for use and the aspirations of its citizens. Land use element goal 2, to maintain a sustainable rate of development which is consistent with the ability of the town to provide essential services, to achieve a stable tax rate, to protect environmental, historic, and cultural resources, and to provide a healthy environment. Economic development goal 1, to foster a local economy that provides opportunities for a diverse collection of businesses and industry. And the economic development element policy 2.3, town recognizes the relationship between adequate services and economic development potential in the community. Those, to me, are platitudes. They're not really goals. Any business that comes to this town would be consistent with the goals that were set forth by the planning board. Let's look instead at what the comprehensive community plan says about an R80 zone. It is defined as a low-density residential zone. And the comprehensive plan states that these are primarily rural areas in which intensive development should not occur. Now, it's clear that I can make an argument that's probably a much better argument than the planning board's, that this zone change is not compatible with your comprehensive plan. It's not consistent, and in fact, it's inconsistent with your comprehensive plan, and that plan is only a year old. This has been done over the last several years. It was enacted last year, and it just there hasn't been enough time for this plan to have needed to have changed. Mr. Callahan continued to say throughout his presentation that this is a town-wide request, and it's really not. Other speakers have mentioned how many parcels there are. This is really an issue related to this one parcel. The term spot zoning has been thrown out. Now, spot zoning is not necessarily illegal. It becomes illegal when, and this is a Rhode Island Supreme Court case from 1968, Carpinato versus Town of North Providence. The crucial test depends upon whether its enactment, and by its enactment I'm talking about a zone change, violates a municipality's comprehensive plan. That is the fact here. It does violate your comprehensive plan. It is not consistent. Therefore, it would be called spot zoning. Another Rhode Island Supreme Court case from 1991 says that changes in the zoning classification of a relatively small tract of land, making its use incompatible with the rest of the district, violates the zoning process. That is what RCA is asking you to do. They should have come in and asked for either a zone change, or they should have gone to zoning and asked for a variance. There are different ways that they could have achieved their purpose, except they know that they wouldn't have been achieved at that point. So they came here trying to do an end around your zoning ordinance. When you look at the underlying zoning district as set forth in your comp plan, it looks to me as if your planning department and planning board completely failed to propose anything but the most minimum of development standards for this particular parcel. The planning department's advisory recommendation is completely devoid of any mention of the appropriateness of an R80 zone for the proposed use and the contemplated density of the applicant's proposal. This failure should make their zone change request effective on its face, and the recommendation by the planning board irrelevant and not relied upon by the town council. There was no analysis determined whether this residential treatment facility or any type of similar facility would be consistent with the density limitations set forth in the low density designation of R80. For purposes of the application, this is a property with 35 acres. which is roughly 15 million square feet. For development purposes, the minimum lot size in this particular zone is 80,000 square feet. Therefore, just doing the math, you could fit about 19 units, parcels, whatever you want to call them, within this 35 acres. If we assume that each one of these units would have 3 people per unit, the residential density would be a maximum of 57 people. If we assume 4 persons in each unit, the density at that point would be a maximum of 76 persons. The applicant's looking for 131 residential beds. That's more than twice the density of the maximum density permitted under your R80. The R80 is not designed for this type of facility. There are a lot of other residential use codes not permitted in the R80 zone right now. These include duplexes, multi-households, mixed use, lofts, sororities, fraternities, halfway houses, mobile homes, senior residential communities, religious housing. There's no reason why, and no work was done by the planning board to distinguish why this type of facility is appropriate for this zone as opposed to any other type of use that could be used in this particular area. The other thing I want to point out is when a planning board generally looks at projects like this, for instance, if this was a senior housing project, this would have to go through a full land development project analysis. Nothing like that is called for by this applicant. They just want to have their zoning change put in place, and they go in and they get their permits, they get their special use permit, and they're good to go. No other review that's required in your zoning ordinance for any other type of project is present in their presentation. I'm going to try to skip over some of this for the sake of time. Now, the time to develop these types of development standards is at the time of the addition of the use to the districts. There should be an intense review of any type of discussion to make a zone change like this to permit a use that's never been permitted in the town in this particular use district, and that should be done by the planning board. That was not done. There's no development standards, there's no recommendations for standards from the planning board or the planning department for a drug and alcohol treatment facility. I mean, we sat here earlier and you had a long hearing on indoor shooting ranges. That's the type of ordinance that should be developed if you're going to allow special use permits in a R80 zone. We need to know what the standards are and how they will be applied. None of that is present in the applicant's request for a zone change. With respect to public safety, there's no comments, there's no issue raised by the planning board as to the overtaxing of your current fire and police departments. Has there been any survey done? Has there been any studies done that show how many calls are required to service a facility with 131 residential patients and who knows how many outpatients? Are you going to have to add police officers? Are you going to have to add a fire department, a fire truck? Are you going to have to add more firemen? None of that's happened, and that's all stuff that the planning department has to do in determining whether this use is consistent with your comprehensive plan. None of it's been done. This proposed high-density use, and that's what it is, it's a high-density use, is allowed by right in 3 of your zoning districts and by special use permit in 5 other districts. There's plenty of places in this town where this can be done in accordance with your comp plan. There's no reason to do what they're asking you to do and create a new exception allowing them to basically spot zone this particular parcel. The language in the text amendment itself requires access to Route 1. There was no discussion by the planning board as to what type of access that needs to be. I didn't see any recommendations from any of your public safety officials as to whether there should be one or two means of ingress and egress. These are usually issues that come up when a zone change is being affected. None of that analysis has been done, and there has been absolutely no work done by the planning department or planning board to treat these questions with any degree of seriousness. The issue Councilwoman McEntee raised earlier about the access and ingress, you had questions about that, which I'm happy to discuss with you now if you'd like.
Certainly. Mr. Nato, is it
NATO.
NATO, sorry.
That's all right.
One of the things I did want to mention at the last hearing on March 23rd, we did have public safety input from Chief Espia and the town. So,
but based on
we have had that.
Based on an understanding of the plan as it had existed then, not as we're telling you, as the owner of the property and the tenant of the property, we won't agree to improve that 50-foot strip.
Okay.
And so I think the analysis that was done by your public safety officials was maybe appropriate at the time, because then they're looking at...
Well, just so you know, we did do our homework. And
I'm not accusing you of not doing yours. I'm saying the planning board
we weren't of the
didn't.
understanding until April 10th that this was not agreeable with the diocese and Prout. So I just want to make that clear, that we're not going into this haphazardly. But anyway, we want to...
I never meant to imply that. I was talking about the planning board, not this council.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have Vin Murray here, who's our, from planning, so maybe we should have him discuss what went on at the planning board. But just so everybody knows, I think we have a rule that we have to stop at 11 unless we vote to go further, or... We have that, okay. Hey, I guess we can be here all night. Anyway.
Great.
But go ahead and let us know about the access road, because apparently that, I've heard that as a big issue, along with everything else I'm hearing tonight. But even before I got here, I knew that that was a problem.
Well, the deeds in question, the deed from 1981 that deeded this property from the sisters, here we go, it's the Sisters of the Holy Cross and Passion, deeded this property to the Roman Catholic Bishop of Providence. Part of their deed retained for themselves a right of ingress and egress to and from other land of grantor over the southerly 50 feet of the premises. That's the, if I may. That's this easement here. Now, there is an easement there, but it's not granted to the Legion of Christ or the current owner of the property. That easement was granted to the Rhode Island Public Building Authority for the sewer maintenance. An easement is something that runs with the land. What is here set forth in this deed doesn't run with the land. It's a reservation of a right of the then property owner, the Sisters of the Holy Cross. It's a reservation of their right to traverse that 50-foot wide parcel to get back to their own land. It didn't run with the land. It doesn't say it goes to the successors and assigns of the grantor. It was restricted to the grantor. We would take the position first that there is no easement. It was a revocable license that was revoked at the time that the property was deeded from the Sisters of the Holy Cross to the Legion of Christ. If a court determines otherwise, then we would argue that we have the right to stop them from improving that property, because there's an easement there. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the property. It's not the greatest road in the world. And we don't want it widened, we don't want it paved, we want it left the way it is. And there's a concept in the law that you cannot overburden an easement. We would argue that improving that easement to allow unfettered access to that back parcel when it's a 131-bed facility and outpatients, and there'll be emergency vehicles going back and forth, will overburden the easement such that it's completely beyond the scope of what was originally intended. So if our first argument doesn't work, I'm pretty darn sure our second one will. I don't think they'll ever be in a position where they can, on their own, improve that to create a second means of ingress and egress. You know, they do have the property within the red. That's fine, that's access. But if your public safety officials are saying they need two, they don't have it. I don't know if you had other questions
Well,
on it.
no, that addresses it, but I guess we'd have to hear from the public safety as to what's necessary at this point with the changes. I mean, I'm concerned that we don't know enough about the changes that have taken place here, but it seems like there's information that has been told to the parents of Prout on different occasions, that there's some confusion about what's going on. Well, at some meetings, it was so many beds and no outpatient, and now there's outpatient. I mean, it just seems like, well, there's a lot of different information that's going around.
Now, I also want to point out that, unfortunately, apparently, Mr. Callahan did not receive a copy of the letter that Mr. Carradini sent to the council on Friday. However, I did call Matt Callahan, spoke with him, and did advise him of the opposition that we would be bringing to the meeting tonight, that I would be attending and speaking against the project. So, you know, I apologize that they didn't get the written letter in a timely manner, but they did get notice of our intentions as soon as we had firmed them up into what we were doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Our position, if that's all right with the council?
Certainly.
I appreciate it. Mr. Nato did call our office. We just didn't receive the letter, so that's the only difference. In its proper form, I think taking away the emotional quotient of this application, this proposal is relatively basic. It's a text amendment to change the R80 zone to allow a drug rehabilitation project. Obviously, we expected some support from the abutters, and that disappeared on Friday afternoon. We still hope to eventually work together with the abutters. We don't think that Prout would decline an offer to improve the road, but that could be the case too. If it is, we'll move towards the northern part of the property. Like Mr. Greenstein said, these addictions are everywhere. They affect families across the town, our state, and our country. And in Rhode Island, we're being overrun, literally. Last year, there were 232 opioid deaths in Rhode Island itself. Mothers are giving birth to addicted babies. And it's a calculation that simply doesn't bode well for our future because there's nowhere to treat these kind of addictions. RCA will make every effort to ensure the safety of its patients, staff, administration, security, and abutters. It's in the best interest of them to run a high-quality facility that's safe, in a safe environment. They have pledged to do everything to make every effort to make sure that it's good for Prout, good for the courthouse, and good for the facility, and good for the town. It'll be 165 jobs, $10 million construction project, $5 million purchase price, and tax revenue for the first time for the town in 35 years, I think. RCA's patients will be at the facility voluntarily. They will screen their patients. There's not criminal behavior in their past. And the fear that the abutters have over these patients are just misplaced. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble here, but I was at the courthouse this morning. Ms. McEntee's been there with me many times on different cases. Every Monday is arraignment day in Washington County Superior Court. That's a felony arraignment day. That's been occurring every day on Monday for generations, decades. Today's arraignments included offenses, these following offenses: felony assault domestic, felony assault, possession of narcotics, violation of protective order, third offense, felony assault domestic, simple assault domestic, third offense, third degree sexual assault, fraudulent access of a computer, delivery of narcotics, fourth degree arson, third-degree sexual assault, receiving stolen goods, larceny, first-degree robbery, etc. That was just today. That happens every single day at that courthouse. These people go in and out and never go near Prout. And it's not because of security. Security ends essentially at the doorstep. Those are tangible criminal offenses, and there's never been an issue as far as we can tell. Prout has never said there has been one. And that's as close or closer to Prout than the RCA facility would be. These patients will go to RCA voluntarily because they need help, they want help. I understand it's fear, but it's not fear of anything specific. It's just unknown fear without a factual basis. When you analyze this and look at it with perspective, anyone could buy or rent a building in Wakefield in an R20 or R10 zone and simply establish a drug rehabilitation facility without purview from the council or the zoning board. And as one speaker said, maybe South Kingston should eliminate that from the R10, 20 zones. But I don't think that's South Kingston's way. From what I've seen, South Kingston open-minded and receptive to people who need help, and these people need help. So by tossing them out of these R10 or R20 zones and eliminating the possibility they can go to R80 zones is just that. Like I said, this could happen tomorrow next to Peacedale Elementary, at South Kingston High School, or Wakefield Elementary. And it's not prohibited there, but it'd be prohibited next to Prout? That just doesn't sit right. RCA and Mr. Greenstein will work with the planning board, the zoning board, and Prout to ensure the safety and success of all parties. When you cast your vote, please refer to the planning board decision. Mr. Nato said they didn't do their jobs. They did. They were with Mr. Murray. He advised them. They went through the process. They did a good job. You appointed them. They're responsible and intelligent people. They know what they're doing. You have to ask yourself, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? Yes. Is this consistent with the zoning matrix of the town? Yes. Additionally, this vote, if you take it in favor of the proposal, is just a step in the process. RCA needs further approval from the planning board for land development review, as Mr. Nato referenced, and the zoning board for approval of the special use permit with 4 of 5 votes. It will face serious scrutiny and will be vetted again and again. This is a situation where people need help, and I think this facility will provide it. For those reasons, I ask you to approve the text amendment to allow a drug rehabilitation facility in R80 zone parcels of land greater than 25 acres, subject to special use permit. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Yes, very briefly. Thank you.
I'm aware of that, sir. I like good advocacy, so I enjoyed listening to Mr. Callahan as he criticized Prout for talking about perception and then launching into an emotional pitch on behalf of his clients. The fact is, R10, RM, R20, all those zones permit a rehab facility such as this to be placed within it. Go there. This is a flagrant example of spot zoning of a parcel that is not, if this happens, it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, and for that reason alone, I don't believe that you should or really have the authority to grant this requested text amendment. Thank you.
At this time, Vin, would you mind coming up and if you could just talk about what happened at the planning board?
Well, all along process-wise, we've looked at this as a procedural enabling consideration that would amend the zoning text generally with some, the planning board did identify some standards for to understand the impact of the potential impact, and that would be, as I said, procedurally enabling, fairly simple approach to it. The planning board's consideration, and they did provide an opinion as to the comprehensive plan consistency, which, folks can argue about the interpretation of it. The planning board is certainly closer to the comprehensive plan development than, anyone else. So, I would grant some gravitas to their opinion, which was a recommendation on the text amendment. That was, as I mentioned, the enabling. The steps to follow would be a process before the Planning Board for Development Plan Review advisory to the Zoning Board of Review, where the formal consideration may take place or an application to come forward. Oh, I mean, it's probably, it's a little different approach, but it was an application brought, it wasn't an application crafted by the town, it was a reaction to an application brought to the town. So when we considered what was proposed, the Planning Board did a review, and they offered their opinion in terms of the text amendment.
Vin, while we have you here, the attorney for the diocese mentioned that there's different ways to achieve the purpose that RCA wants to get at through, Mike, probably you're better at answering this, or Vin, both of you. Is there another avenue for them, like a variance or any other avenue that they could go
I think
to get this?
A use variance criteria is very difficult. I'm sure our solicitor would agree to achieve it. Right.
Okay. That was mentioned by Mr. Nato.
I agreed with that. It's incredibly difficult,
Right.
if not impossible, to prove that there's no other beneficial use other than the use being proposed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I could not see that happen.
Right. And obviously there are other zones where this is permitted. I mean, but that wasn't their application.
Mm.
The application was for a text amendment specific to the R80 zone to at least enable the consideration. So that's how we approached it in terms of the review.
I also mentioned the zone change for that specific zone.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks, Vin. All right, are there any further comments or questions from council
I
members?
guess I have one more from Vin. Vin, before I let you go, sorry, the access to Route 1, was there any consideration specifically towards that, or is that too specific to the project?
Well, I think we did take a look at the deeds, and I guess there could be some argument, apparently there is, about the utility of the easement on the south side of the property, but there is a reference to access of some sort in some of the deeds that we're taking a look at. Again, that's specific to this parcel. I mean, they have to get there somehow. I imagine they could make an argument that they have an easement by use over time, if not something specifically in the title. But we didn't do a title review, if that's what the question is.
No, I was just wondering if you looked at the other possibility of the access to the north, or if that even came up in your review.
Well, honestly, I don't think that peninsula there is part of the parcel.
That strip that goes out to Route 1?
I mean, that parcel is essentially landlocked, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't,
So
it may
that
have some
little-
access right.
that little
I understand
L,
that, but
Yeah.
the way that what's depicted in the tax assessor's maps and the GIS system for the town does not show that area being as part of this subject parcel. Yeah. Well, I mean, and frankly, that hadn't, we hadn't discussed that in any kind of detail to this point, whether or not the accessibility. I think, the planning board always did felt, and staff felt, that the issues, if it came to a specific application, if this were successful, then the relationship among the school use and the proposed use would be a key consideration, and we've certainly heard considerable conversation on that this evening.
Did you have much conversation about this at the planning board? Were there parents or people from the public that showed up at that hearing?
Well, the planning board, where this was considered, my colleague Dennis Vinatiero was the staff in attendance. The planning board's recommendation, that was not something that was a requirement for specific notice as a general text amendment. And we did have conversation with the solicitor's office on that to make sure we were proceeding in a manner, correct procedurally, but so we did not make specific notice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could you speak into the microphone?
Or you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the two parcels, there's actually two lots, and they're connected, so we're proposing that our property would be...
Can you show us what you're talking about, James, please?
Actually, the lot splits right there, so there's one lot here, one lot here, but we only put, on the GIS map, I think it cuts off the property.
Does show it going straight up. That other parcel was never part of any real discussion we've had to this point in time.
So that was part of the original land owned by the Legion of Christ, even that L there, or whatever that is?
The L is part of the proposal we'd like to purchase, and is part of the parcel that Legion of Christ owns.
Mm-hmm.
It is for sale.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to close
Prepared
this.
to do that? I mean, is everybody ready to end this, or is there any chance of going back to discussions with the Prout people? I asked both attorneys. I'm asking the attorneys if there's any room for discussion.
I don't have any authority to say one way or the other. I'd be happy to talk to our clients, which includes the, as I said, the owner of the property is the Roman Catholic Bishop of Providence. But I have no authority to say that we would enter into discussions at this point.
I think we'd be open to discussions, but as you can obviously hear, I think that may be foreclosed.
Mike, can you explain the process? Can you just explain to us the process, what we're doing here? We're just changing the, if we take action on this tonight, it is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, and what would the procedure be from there for this project?
Well, in terms of process, the first thing you'd have to do is close this public hearing on this issue, which has come before you for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, which would in effect allow a rehabilitation center to also be sited in an R80 zone pursuant to a special use permit. So if in fact you adopted this text amendment, anyone who wanted to apply in an R80 zone would have to go to the planning and zoning boards in order to be vetted at those levels in order to get a special use permit. So it would be to the planning board for development plan review with the recommendation to the zoning board on the special use permit. Well, it would go back for development plan review, but they'd have to get a recommendation from the planning board on the application for a special use permit. If you decided not to approve this change, then obviously that would not be possible. And if you decided not to approve this change, that is not appealable. If you decided to approve this change, it is appealable.
And we could also continue the public hearing, which would just put us back here again.
You could continue the public hearing, but
Yeah.
you've
I was just
heard
hoping if
last
there was
time and
room
this
to
time,
talk.
I think you've heard from both
Right.
sides. You certainly have the ability to continue the public hearing if you wanted to.
Now, we could
Normally, when you
close the
continue the
public
pub-
hearing, could we ask for more information on, once we close the public hearing, we have to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily vote tonight, although you're here and you're hearing all
Right.
this tonight. You could close the public hearing and then continue your decision to another night. That's another possibility. But you couldn't take more information in. Once
No,
you close
no, I
the
don't think we
public
need
hearing-
any more information. But
Yeah, Steve's pointing out that it's not just any R80, it's R80 with the 25 acres and access to US Route 1. So it's a little more restrictive than any R80. And that's what is before you, is R80 residential zone on parcels of land greater than 25 acres in the area with access to Route 1, and as I mentioned, subject to a special use permit.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed. Do I hear a motion in regard to item 7B?
Can I just, one of the things, can I say something about this one? You know, I've been listening, and I certainly am sympathetic to what everybody's saying. At the last meeting, it was very important to us that we restricted what was going to happen, and which is why we said the no sexual offenders, no forced, you know, we didn't want it court-ordered. With the courthouse being right next door, it's, I think it's a concern that, I'm confused. I would think the courthouse would be worse than this. You know, that's just my concern.
Abe, at this point, only the council members can
Yeah,
discuss.
excuse me, folks. We're beyond that.
I am just saying, I've given it a lot of thought. I've listened and I've heard, and I'm just voicing my concerns openly for you to hear. That's, you know, my thought process. I have heard it, and I do think, you know, regardless of how we vote, there is perception, and there is not in my backyard, and not that that's right or wrong. It's just it does happen. I do live on Columbia Street. I remember when the methadone clinic came in, and I was like, you know, what? It's right down the street. It's right in between the high school and the elementary school, and my kids at that point walked to Peacedale and would walk right by it. And it certainly, I lived it. I understand. It was right across the street from a playground. Sometimes things happen, and you just, like, you're all here. I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't know it was even happening until it was done. So, you know, but there is perception, and, you know, drug problems are everywhere, and this is a great thing, maybe not in the right place. But that's just where my thought process.
All right, I'm looking for a motion at this point. Is anybody going to help me out?
No, what are we motioning? To take a vote?
One of the things I'd like to suggest is would it be possible to put this off when at least Meg is here? I mean, that's another issue. The vote, I'm talking about the vote. You know.
Yes, she could be apprised of everything that's been said. That, if
So
we
the
want
motion you're looking for is either to approve or deny this.
that would, we can, again, postpone to the vote to a future hearing, or to a future meeting. Or we can vote on this and decide up or down. What happens if it's tied?
It doesn't pass. Must be a majority.
Well, I think I'll jump. I would motion to deny the text amendment 7B for the special permit.
I'll second.
So moved. Comments from the council?
Based solely on property rights, I will be voting against this. I feel that the people who own the property behind Prout also have rights, and I respect all of your rights and all of your comments as well, but thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any other comments from council? I, too, will be voting against this motion. I think that the argument that this town is in need of such facilities is overwhelming, and that it's true that for decades, a facility which would pose much greater security threats to the school has been there and present, and it's never presented a problem. And if I were looking at my own children's future, and I have small children, and I'll be looking at the schools to send them to, considering Prout, that would be the danger that I would see if this was there or not. So be that as it may, we're talking about a zoning amendment. If we approve a special use permit in this zone for this purpose, it still has to go through a number of hurdles, and there's all kinds of opportunity for folks to make the arguments about security that are more appropriately made there.
I just want to say that one of the compelling arguments, and I do agree we need these facilities, and we probably need one in this town, but would I want a rehab center right next door to South Kingstown High School? I have to say my answer would be no. And whether it can go there or not, that's another issue. Whether it's zoned, that we could put one in there already, I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think there's a land. But that was the most compelling of all the arguments, that right next door. One of the things I would question on the diocese is, why don't you buy the property? That might answer the whole problem here.
That's a fine point. Are there any other comments before we vote?
I just
Is that
would
a
like to
question that
say,
you wanted me to
I would
answer?
like
No,
to say.
no, it's just a suggestion I was making.
No, I just would like to say, I do think there is a lot to be said for perception. I understand the parents that are concerned about the perception of their school and the staff at Prout. I also do, though, see the need for these facilities, and sadly, we have drug problems, and there's a perception that maybe we don't, and that's a concern as well. So placement is everything, and maybe this just wasn't the right fit.
All right. Well, all in favor of the motion to deny this special use permit, say aye.
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 All opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. To be clear, I think we are going to need to...
What?
Motion did not pass. It needs 3 votes to pass.
Yeah.
What?
It needs you need 3 votes to take action. Right now, it sounds like it's...
No, we had 3.
Oh,
we have
It's
three?
2 to 2.
Oh, it's 2 to 2.
It was 2 to 2.
Oh, I thought I heard 2.
Joe and myself are opposed to that motion.
Okay.
Opposed to denying it.
Yes.
So there's no action. So nothing's getting, it doesn't get,
Motion fails.
motion fails.
Now, one of you can make a motion to approve.
And that will fail too.
That's
So
right.
we need Meg.
That, if the motion to approve fails, it fails. You need 3 votes to
Right.
approve this zoning amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve.
The council didn't know what they were voting for, so I think it's a...
Abel, it's inappropriate.
Wait.
No,
Sir.
excuse me,
No, I think
sir.
we know.
This is a discussion amid the council.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 7B.
Need a second?
I'm not going to make a second myself. I think we should wait until Meg is present, and we have a possibility of 3 votes.
His motion fails.
His
There's no
motion-
second.
got a second.
It's just not a motion, right?
So I can second his, and then we just have to vote.
You can do that.
I'll second it.
So moved. Any discussion?
No, please.
All in favor of the motion to approve this amendment to the zoning ordinance, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
And the motion fails.
Hey, Rachel. Thank you. Hell,
Do we need a motion for
well,
that?
it's past my mojo.
We'll have a 2-minute recess while the room clears.
Thank you. I really wanted it. The meeting still goes on. Could you take it outside?
Clarity, we have clarity tomorrow for everybody, that's what we're doing.
Folks, we still have a meeting to finish. Please.
I think Mr. Twoney's been standing there all night.
Yep.
Good luck, sir, with your Wi-Fi business.
Thank you for waiting for us.
If you'd stop stealing basketball players from SK, I wouldn't mind it so much.
With Joey Carroll, Sharon Duffy, yeah, really good friends. Actually, wow.
Could you take it outside? Could you take it outside? There's a meeting going on.
Okay, we're gonna go now.
Thank you.
Cindy, we were talking about that, and he said, does he like his birthday anywhere? He lets his wife come to town council. He's in New York for a week.
I think they should have Wi-Fi at the senior center too.
Well, yeah, right. It's unanimous here. Okay.
Yep. All right. Microphones on, council members.
Okay.
Hold on, sir. We just have a few more things to get through. At this point, I'd entertain a motion to continue the meeting past 11 o'clock.
I'd like to motion to continue the meeting past 11 o'clock.
Microphone.
I'll second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can we, try and cut it at 11:30? My phone.
We'll get through the rest of it. All right.
I gotta get
That passes unanimously. So we are now on item 8, Communications. Item B, C, D. Oh, wait.
No, B, we have to appoint.
Sorry.
Steve's getting us the
Can-
names, so
I don't know what Mr. Twoney's
Yeah,
here
let's-
for,
let's
but
let
can we
him
please
talk.
bump him up to right now?
he's
Okay, well, we can
he's a
move,
concerned citizen. He's,
we
comments
can
from-
move item 9 up on the agenda. Do I hear a motion to
Yeah.
move?
We'll take the comment, yeah, motion to move item 9 to the next item. And so this is comments from concerned citizens.
item 9.
And that's you.
I'm item 9, thank you. My
Wait, so
name's
we need a
Richard
second, we need to
Tuoni.
make that.
I
happen.
second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, sir, thank you
My
for
name is
waiting.
still Richard Tuoni, and I'm here to talk on behalf of the Senior Center. It's not wireless. I do a class, I volunteer for a class in the Senior Center, and then I use the conference room. The conference room needs to be, in order to use the internet, I've got to connect a wire. I got to connect wires. Now, here's the thing. The outlet is on this side of the room. The computer is fixed on the wall here, on this side of the room. We have to run a cord across the room onto a chair because it can't go all the way. Plug it into the computer because the wire connecting the TV and the computer is short. So the computer has to stay in place. Now this wire is this high off the ground. Now I've got to either step over it or limbo under it. And I'm 60 years removed from the limbo. Okay. So I step over, I go to the computer. Now the computer is, I'm on the back of it because the computer's connection is on the right. And that turns the computer around. I operate the computer upside down, looking at the keyboard upside down. Then I come back, I go to my desk, I grab the mouse, and I work the mouse. Something happens, I get up, I got to go back to the computer, limbo under or step over, do whatever I need to do on that, come back, okay. This is because there's no wireless in the conference room. I don't know why there's no wireless in the conference room. It's supposed to be Wi-Fi. I think most people think it's Wi-Fi all the way. It's not. Now let me show you, the illustration would really work. Picture number 1 is the outlet on the right-hand side of the wall. Picture number 2, if you'll look at it as a landscape, picture number 2 shows the cord coming across, and it's high because I don't have enough cord if I put it on the ground, okay? Now, that cord connects to the computer. Now, you'll see the computer has to be backwards because I can't get at it. There's a table here. I have to come around it, and I have to operate on the opposite side of it.
Mr. Tuohy.
Why? Because the cord connecting the computer and the TV is too short.
Looks like a safety hazard.
It's too short. Now, this I have to go through every week. I don't
With
want
all
to trip
due
over
respect-
the
Wi-Fi,
city
huh?
town.
I will look into the issue with Terry, and we will get the issue resolved.
I trust
Hey,
those two, they'll get it
That's
done.
very nice. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. With that, I don't have anything else to say.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
Thank you for
very
coming
much for
in.
your time.
Worth the wait.
You grab Terry and tell her what you need, and she'll take care of you.
Harry?
Are there any other comments from the public at this time? Mr. Nielsen.
Bruce Nielsen, Allen Avenue. With the recent change in the representative from District 33, when Mr. Lally abandoned his post, we're going to have primary May 5th. I'd like to know, and we're going to have new voting places where people haven't gone in the past. I'd like to know if the voters are going to be made aware of the new voting places.
Certainly, they will be advertised in the newspaper as far as where the polling places will be located. One of the polling places will be located at the police station. The second polling place will be located at the senior center on Broad Rock Road.
All right.
Steve, is there going to be South Road also? I think South Road School,
is the
too.
third location.
Thank you. There's nothing that's going to be sent to the voters?
Is she sending them to the voters? I'd have to confirm that with the clerk.
Okay.
Fine, thank you. With regards to budgetary information, I believe the council just finished completing their budget. I'm interested to know if there's any individual with any additional budget thoughts or hopes that there will be additional things presented in the budget, taking away our environmental management position that Mr. Collins was talking about. Is there anything else that you would like to have seen in the budget?
I would like to add Wi-Fi to the senior center.
That's a good one.
Excellent.
Not at this time, no.
Thank you very much.
There may, Bruce, be citizens who come forward with a petition for some type of demand for spending, but we don't know of it.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Good night, Mr. 20.
Good evening. My name is Richard Toohey, and this is Rose Russo. And we've been teaching yoga in the town of South Kingstown. We're going into our 17th year in Parks and Recreation. Excuse me. We both had recovering colds, but I don't know, this is an awareness. I'm just bringing some information and facts to the council to be aware of and to entertain. We're located in the ground floor of the Peacedale office building. Currently, 9 years we were at the Guild and upstairs. And about 6 years ago, Andy Nada approached us, and he was then the head of Parks and Recreation, and asked us to view this space in the bottom of the Peacedale office building, and would we be interested in relocating from the Guild building to the ground floor. And on consideration, we said this place needs work, but if you could give us permission to control the programming here, we would undertake the work that we felt that was necessary to make this a yoga studio/school. And the second condition, we needed an office because at the time we had recently received national certification as a school at the highest level, which took 1.5 years in the process to achieve that. And that was granted verbally to us. And the third condition, there was a large industrial dumpster 15 feet from the front door, and we asked that be relocated. So those were our three conditions, that we would take this project of fixing it up and working with it, and there was no counter conditions they had 9 years that we had been giving quality classes to the town. And we thought Andy was part of the vision that we wanted a school, a place that we could expand. And so we went into it. We spent over close to $30,000 of our own monies. Friends, family, and the people who attended our teacher training program. Part of our tuition process for the school was tuition and then half service to the community. Our teachers have taught, you mentioned volunteers, but we have taught parallel to that every Monday for the past 17 years at the Senior Center. And that was part of their training that they would give to the community. I mean, I could bring testimonials about the nature, and everyone says that, well, the quality of our program is not in question. It's come down to the use and whether or not it's being utilized sufficiently. We've created a sacred space, a place where people can come, have a cup of tea, sit in a quiet room. Our floors have a special mop. Your shoes are taken off. That floor is spotless. We police the area outside, and again, we've well over $30,000. And now it's determined that with this beautification that we went through, with considerable expense and time and effort and passion, that we're being asked to share it with multiple places. And when I entered and the new administration came in after Andy left, we showed them the fourth floor, multi-purpose. We had a purpose and a vision, and we thought that was shared by the town, and an appreciation that we've been doing it for 17 years, going on the 17th year. So I'd like to respectfully offer a tour of what we have accomplished to the council at your convenience. Because as now, we are no longer going to be, for the first time in 17 years, no longer in the Neighborhood Guild's brochure offering our yoga program. And I think that's unfortunate, and I think something other than offering a small room, 1/10 the size of the studio space that we renovated, should be considered for us, something other than what's been offered to us in consideration. So again, it would start, I would think, by viewing the space, and you make the determination. And with people that we've taught in the town, we could ask them to attend here, tell about the quality of their, where they've witnessed and gone through. So I don't know if Rose would want to add anything, but we've taught there together. That's good. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I'm Steve Corley of West Kingston. I really appreciate the council's patience with us citizens. I just kind of wanted the budget. I couldn't make any of the hearings. And 5 years ago, the school superintendent said that she could provide the same level of education with one less school, and she could have saved upwards of $800,000. There's now 300 less students within our district, almost 10% less students. I don't mind spending the money on things to educate the kids. I don't think all the buildings are necessary. I would just like the town council to have a good feeling of what the plan is as the student enrollment is reduced, and that would make me feel better. The school committee's job is to spend the money. To me, the town council's is kind of rein in on how it's being spent. If you do spend the money, I would encourage you to increase the vehicle exemption. Just keep raising it up. It's a crappy tax. It's not collected as readily as a homeowner's tax. I'm a landlord. I'd rather pay it on property tax because I've had tenants in the past who keep their out-of-state license plates and all that kind of stuff. So I'd encourage you to put more of the tax on property, not on personal vehicles. And the university, I would ask you, in communication with the university, to remove the building at East Farm that's falling apart and dilapidating along Route 138, or Route 108, I'm sorry. It's on your right-hand side. Gutters are falling off and whatnot. And I'd also ask you to inquire about what's going on with the International Athletic Hall. Probably could be used for a domestic violence center or something like that with all those dorms in back, something different than being empty. I'd also like you to discuss, I am opposed to a train station in the northwest corner of the farm fields and Plains Road. President Dooley has made it known that that's where he would like to put a train station. I live on Plains Road. I live down Stony Fort Road. There's just makes no sense to me how you could even think you could have a traffic pattern that would work. But I'd kind of appreciate if the town council might feel that they could talk to the university president about that. And Friday night, my neighbor was mugged on Plains Road. They stopped to help somebody that looked like they were in distress. When she got out of the car, she was punched. When he got out of the car to help his wife, 4 guys jumped him and beat the crap out of him, got staples in the back of his head. Talk about, perception of what's safe and what's not. It's less than a mile from my house. I would just hope that our police department is working on that and not the university police department. Not that I don't trust the university police department, but I think it's a big South Kingston issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? Comments from the council? Back to communications. Item B is a communication dated March 24th, 2015 from South Kingstown Partnership for Prevention Commission. Members requesting the appointment of members to fill vacant ex officio positions on the commission. It's received, placed on file, and the town council directs.
I make a motion that we appoint Captain Ewing Chow to the South Kingstown Partnership Prevention Commission as an ex officio member. Also that we appoint both Tahira Horton and Ryan Doyle to be appointed as students. One is an 8th grader at Curtis Cornell Middle School, that's Tahira, and Ryan is a 9th grader at South Kingstown High School.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Item C and D, we can take together. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we consolidate items, communication item 8, C and D,
Place it on file.
and place them on file. Thank you.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That brings us to the town manager's report.
A couple of items I need to report on. One is that we've been advised, after consultation with the Department of Transportation, that they will be repairing a section of High Street beginning Wednesday evening, April 15th. The work's expected to be completed by early Friday morning, April 17th, weather permitting. In an effort to lessen traffic congestion and detouring during daytime hours, all work will be performed in nighttime hours between 8:30 p.m. and 4 a.m. Although the duration of the work each night during these hours, there is going to be noise and there is going to be light intrusion into the neighborhood. However, it's been a prime concern of the town and the state to be able to get that road into a passable condition. As I've noted to the council in previous sessions, the application for wetlands alterations has been filed. We expect that the reconstruction of the entire length of High Street will be put out to bid this fall, with construction beginning next spring. But that road can't continue in its existing condition without remedial actions. Those actions will be taken hopefully this week, weather permitting. We've also sent notice to residents along that street that have signed up for messaging from the town, and hopefully they will bear with us until we can get that work completed. Second, I did want to mention, as I mentioned the other evening, that the town has sold bonds in the amount of $6.9 million and have seen a reduced bond interest cost over the next 12 years of approximately $568,000. The bonds were sold at 1.569%, and the town has continued to maintain its AA1 status with Moody's. I want to again recognize the services that Trish Sunland, Finance Director, did in the sale of those bonds. I do want to comment on concerns that were just expressed by the individuals who have operated the yoga program in South Kingstown. The recreation program has offered them an opportunity to relocate and still remain a viable program within our recreation program. There's been suggestions as fact that, in fact, the town had made provisions to provide 2,000 square feet available to these two individuals with no rental agreement. And to be honest, over the past, from March of 2013 through March of 2015, total revenues to the town have been about $14,000. We have an opportunity to move the pottery program, which is generating about $44,000 a year in the same effort, to that space. We have a responsibility to be able to provide programming where the most people are benefiting from the use of our facilities. This is the first that I've seen of persons having license to use town property without having a lease agreement, and that has to change. We're not looking to move that program out of the recreation stable of programs. What we're looking to do is to have it fit into what 2015 needs are. This was brought forward to the council earlier this year when we went through budget adoption, and we went through the review of the program for the Peacedale office building. We'd certainly like to continue to work with those folks. I've met with them personally. I've indicated to them that the decisions really would rest with the Recreation Commission, and that if they wanted to appeal the decision of Recreation Administration, it should be brought forward to them, because I support what Recreation Administration has done as being most appropriate for the community services that it's rendering. I'll be glad to provide additional information if the council wishes that at a future time. But I do not agree that any municipal official had license to provide a dedicated space for an indefinite period of time without a rental agreement being in place. It just would be inappropriate. That concludes the items I need to review this evening.
All right.
What is it?
Town solicitor's report. Okay.
Thank goodness.
That brings us, oh, we don't have any appointments to make tonight, aside the ones we already made. That brings us to item I, A resolution authorizing an amendment to an award of bid originally granted on November 24th, 2014 to Hart Engineering Corporation, 800 Scenic View Drive, Cumberland, for headworks improvements.
Did you miss a page?
Oh, did I miss a page?
See?
C. Okay. Sorry. We're-
Items C, E, F, and G, J, K, and L. If there's no questions on those, we would entertain a motion to adopt as presented on the agenda.
Yeah, sure.
All right, go ahead.
I was the Hart Engineering.
So we need a motion. Okay, I move that we consolidate and approve, where are we?
Items.
New business items C, E, F, G, and I,
J, K, L.
and J, and K, and L.
So moved.
I'll just make a comment on C, just so I understand, Steve. The last 2 years of that contract, the cost is unknown, but we have the right to opt out if we don't agree with the cost. I just wanted to clarify that. Great. That's the only question I had.
All right, any further discussion on those items? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.